some shutdowns on the
Call to order the regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners Tuesday, May 26, 2020 at 6 o'clock. As always, we'll start off with invocation. I'll ask Commissioner Walker to lead us, please.
Thank you, sir. Let us pray. Father, we come before you this evening asking for your guidance as we deal with the issues in our county and help us to do the things that best serve your will and are best for our citizens. We thank you for the many blessings you send our way. We ask for your help as we go through the rest of this virus crisis we're facing and whatever's involved with it. We just ask for your help and guidance getting through the rest of what we need to get through. Again, we just thank you for all our blessings and for the gift of your Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ. In his name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Please continue to stand for our pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Start off with the approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Now move on to our comments and from our Commissioner and Manager. I'll start with Commissioner Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to welcome our small crowd out here tonight since we're still involved in this ridiculous lockdown that I'm not pleased about, but I think a lot of other people aren't either. I've never really understood half of what they're doing. I don't understand what's magic about 6 feet. Why not 6.5 feet? Why not 5.5 feet? Why not 4 feet? You know, I don't think there's any science behind it at all. But it does make a difference when you start trying to, say, for instance, space out desks in classrooms and so forth that our school folks are going to have to struggle with. So it is what it is. I hope when this is over with, we can have our legislators, maybe in this state and other states, look at the power that's been given to these governors and see if we can't put some checks on it, because I don't think a lot of them have done very well with their behavior during this crisis. And I've talked about this before, so I won't belabor it. The second thing I'd like to mention is something a little bit out of the ordinary, but tomorrow afternoon, weather permitting, we're going to be into manned space flight again in the United States. And it's been kind of choked up even talking about it, but we got two brave dudes that are going to get on the top of a Falcon 9 rocket tomorrow afternoon and go into space. So I think we need to keep all of those people in our prayers, not just them, but all the folks at SpaceX and the coordinators of NASA and all the folks that are working that. That's one of the great public-private partnerships I think that the United States government has ever done, is this venture of government commercial space travel that we're getting ready to do. So I can tell you from being in the rocket business, it's a stressful business, even when you don't have people riding the rocket. But when you have people riding the rocket, I can't think of a more stressful career field, and I can assure you that all those folks are not going to be sleeping tonight. They're anxious to get this over with and make it a success. So, like I said, let's keep them all in our prayers. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Walker.
Thank you. As I continue to talk with our folks out in the county that I interact with in various ways, I share the sentiments, and the folks that I'm talking to share the sentiments that Commissioner Morris has expressed. About 80+% of the people that I've talked to feel like that these restrictions are overreach, they're overly strict, and they sure will be happy when they're a thing of the past. And I think there are things that we can learn. When we look back, I'm 75 years old, and thank the good Lord for those 75 years, and hope he'll give me a few more at least. But this is the strangest thing I've ever seen in these 75 years. I've never seen anything anywhere even close to it. I've never seen a time before when we couldn't go to church. Never seen a time before when I couldn't go in a store and buy a roll of toilet paper. Never seen a time when I couldn't go to a restaurant and have a good, enjoyable meal. And I understand it's starting to really take its toll on people, emotional issues, mental issues. Suicide rate is elevated. A lot of downside that I think needs to be considered. It's nice to prevent the disease. The good thing is, many people who have it is so mild they don't even know they've had it. And some know they've had something, but it wasn't severe enough to even go to the doctor. The figures are coming in at about 80% of the people who've had it is like no big deal at all. But in the other 20%, as with a lot of things, there is risk. I'm in a high-risk category with my age. But hopefully, as I mentioned, when this is all done, we can learn some things from it. And if our country ever has to face a situation like this again, I hope some of the things we've learned that worked, that seemed to be the right things to do, and looking back, we can apply, and some of the things that were unnecessary, too strict, we'll learn to do better next time. But anyway, we're still in a good time of the year. It's a very beautiful time of the year, and a lot of positive. I wish my allergies would go away, but we're working on that. Had an interesting talk with, I'll try to make it short and finish up, Mr. Chairman, but had an interesting talk with my doctor today. She's down on the edge of Forsyth County, and I said, how many virus patients have you actually seen? And it was either one or none of all the patients she sees. I was amazed. But anyhow, it is what it is, and we have to deal with it, learn from it, and go on. I'll stop there, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Langford?
I'm going to give you a thought for today, Commissioner Walker, of who's in total control of all of it. Thought for today: teach me your way, O Lord. I will walk in your truth. Unite my heart to fear your name. I will praise you, O Lord, my God, with all my heart. Amen. Comes from Psalm 86, 1, 11, and 12. It is good to be here tonight and to see this many people out, and hopefully we can say something or do something that encourages the people of the county to know at least we're trying. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Mendenhall?
Thank you, sir. I just want to welcome everybody here tonight. Thank you for coming out. Anybody that is watching us tonight, well, I know we're being live streamed. I'd just like to say thank you for taking time out of your night to watch us. The participation in the governmental process is so important, and that's what makes me so thankful for the people that takes time out of their busy schedule and will come to a meeting when I know they could have many other things to do. But thank y'all for being here, each and every one of you, and to all the people that is watching us, thank you. And the only thing I can say, the next thing on my agenda is to get a haircut tomorrow. So,
Ain't much there.
my wife reminded me that it was time to get it. So, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all for being here tonight. I'm going to echo what some of the fellow commissioners said, my frustration of what's going on. We wrote Governor Cooper our letter of concern of maybe putting it back in the county's hands. He chose to ignore it. So just a message straight to our governor: you're killing our state. Stop worrying about your poll numbers and start worrying about your people. Now, seriously, doubt he's going to hear that too, but I really wish he would. And as Commissioner Langford said, we do have an almighty God who's in control, and thank God for that. But with that, I'm going to pass it on to our county manager, Mr. Oakley.
I would like to welcome everyone here and everyone watching. I hope all Stokes County are well and taking care of themselves. Mr. Chairman, I have, as far as the COVID stuff is going on, I do have something here I'm going to pass out to the commissioners. There's going to be some testing going on in a site. West Stokes is going to have one on June the 1st, 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock, and then they hope to have 2 other sites that will be offered and tested sometime, and when they'll have that updated. This will be North Stokes and South Stokes, but I think each county is to test, what, 5%?
5%.
5% of their population, so we're looking at what, about 2,200? So if they can get that tested, and I just hope and pray that this virus gets gone. That's my prayer. So with that, this is on our website, folks. You can go on Stokes County's website and look and see if this is right here is if you wanted to go by, or you know someone would like to be tested. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I've done that.
Thank you, sir. We have no public comments. So then we'll move on to approval of the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve. Second.
I hear a second. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Move on now to our information agenda. Up first, we have River Street, Mr. Eric Kramer, and Chief Executive Officer, Wilkes Communications, River Street Networks.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners. It's been a while since we had an update. Part of that, was hoping to get here sooner, but I had some major surgery, one in August and another one in January, and had some complications. So I know we were on the agenda several times, and then the pandemic hit. But I'm here now, and I think I got about 40 minutes to give you a full update on where we're at and sort of where the network is. We've invested a significant amount of money here, and we're sort of set the stage for some opportunities. I want to talk about that as far as the network, where we see it going, and then federal funding that's out there that we can go after and try to get to as many people as we can. And so very pleased with where we're at, and I'm going to kind of walk through this. If you have questions as I go, feel free to just interrupt me. It doesn't matter. And some of our team that's here, Greg Coltrane, Rob Taylor, Anessa McKinney, they're here from our business development group, so they may chime in as well as I'm speaking. So with that, I'll get started. I got to turn this on. So this is our current network, and so when we first came here in 2015, you can sort of see our Wilkes County network in the left-hand upper corner of North Carolina. Since then, we've really expanded all the way from Murphy to all the way out to Belhaven, North Carolina on the coast, and now we have a significant presence in Virginia. And so the orange area, the green area is where we have service, the dark green area is where we have fiber. What is new to this map, most of it most recently, is fixed wireless. And so we have acquired a number of fixed wireless companies, and we've added that to our, I'll call it our bench, and so that's now an option for us. Wireless is not even on the radar for us when we came here in 2015. Fiber to the home was really all we were doing. And so we found as fixed wireless is an excellent complement to expanding out to get to just about everybody as far as an economical way to do that. I'm going to talk a little bit about that here as far as some, I think, creative things we can do here. And then there's the light orange areas are fixed wireless grants and projects that we've won, funded by county, state, federal funding. The kind of little darker orange areas are where we've won fiber to the home grants. We won $33 million last year in a federal auction for fiber to the home in 9 counties, 20,000 homes in Virginia. We were also awarded a $48 million USDA loan in those same areas. That was the largest loan award in the country, and that fiber grant award was the largest one in that auction. And so I want to talk about how we leverage some of those opportunities here in Stokes County. Okay, so this is our current customer base. In 2015, we first came here, we had less than 8,000 broadband customers. Okay, since then we've more than doubled our wireline base, and we've added close to 7,000 wireless customers. All that's in the last 5 years. So we basically tripled the size of our company from a financial standpoint as well as a service standpoint. And this is just our internet customers only. That's really what we focus on. We're really giving away voice now for free, okay, with the services that we offer. And so this is sort of how things have changed a little bit since we started this, and really sort of how we approach deploying networks has changed as well. Our current network map in Stokes County is right here. And so what we have built basically is a backbone network. Our plan was to do that in 3 years. We started this project in 2015. The backbone was basically finished in 2018. We hooked up our first customer in 2018. And so the county was one of those. We just recently, within the last year, we won the school contract. So they're on this network as well. And so this backbone had been built to basically feed and edge off to these other areas that we want to serve. And so what you see on this map is how we've broken up the county into zones. And so our business case was basically saying each one of these zones, we had enough demand, we would build out the fiber to the home. And so we've been marketing the county to try to figure out where that demand is. And so this is the current state of that network. It's all fiber to the home, gigabit capable. The minimum speed we offer on fiber is 100 up and 100 down. So 100 meg up to the internet, 100 meg down, but it can do a gig. So this has as fast and as good of a network as there is in the entire country. If anyone says any differently, they're misinformed. Okay, you've got it right here. And so this fiber to the ground should last 20, 30 years. The equipment on there should last for a very long period of time. Okay. The question now is how do we expand this? All right. We committed to try to get to everybody with 25 and 3 in the county. I'm going to give you an update on where that's at and how we funded that. And also, I think we have a proposal to try to get to what I think is close to maybe 9,000 other residents in a period of 6 months to a year. And so that's something that we'll talk about here in a minute. So current network subscriber counts, we have 228 on the network in the last 2 years. Actually, it's less than 2 years. About 100 and half of those are business, half are residential. Two of the largest accounts of the county are on there. We just finished our 2019 audit. We had an operating loss of $624,000 and an operating cash flow loss of $140,000. We're adding about 10 to 12 customers a month, so we should be at a positive operating cash flow within the second half of this year. Our original goal, normally when you see these networks, is 5 years to get operating positive cash flow. So we're a little bit ahead of the curve on that. Our original break even on customers is about 500, so we're halfway there. But since then, just based on the size of the network, from an operating income standpoint, we need about 520 more on the network, and from a cash flow standpoint, about 117. We'll hit that 117 mark just based on the current growth as we see it. But we do feel like there's a way to get a much larger customer base on this network. Network cost. So I want to pass out some of those examples. So basically, what have we spent in the county to date? And it's a significant amount of money. In fact, it's the most money we spent on a network outside of Wilkes County. So this is a schedule, and Greg Coltrane is passing those out to you guys. This is from 2015 to 2018. That was the construction of the backbone. The cost of that backbone was close to $7.8 million, $8 million, at an average cost per location passed of $3,500 and $40,000 per route mile. Okay. What we normally see in most of our network builds is about $2,500 per customer location passed, and about $25,000 per route mile. What we ran into in Stokes, and I'm sure you guys are well aware of this, was a lot of rock up here. And so the cost is extremely high. We are still investing in the network, and we continue to invest in the network. We actually spent close to $2.4 million just in 2019. That was just last year. So the whole project has been funded to a level of close to $10.3 million. The average cost per location passed is $35.65 per location, and the cost per route mile is close to $45,000. Okay, so significantly higher than what we've seen on the average, just because of the topography and the geography of the area. That's as of 2019. So this is the backbone cost, the summary. You should have this in your hands as well. We were given a $1.8 million aid to construction grant. Our goal was to fund the 80-20 part of this backbone. It ended up being $1.8 million on behalf of the county, $6 million for us. We thought that was going to be $5.5 million, so it was a little more than what we thought. But we got that done. It was about $7.8 million, as I mentioned, at about 23% funded by the county and 77% funded by River Street. We did spend that $2.4 million last year, so year to date, $10.3 million. And I have the average cost here. The average cost per location is 43% higher than the average, and the average cost per route mile is close to 78% higher. And so that's one of the challenges we have with this network. Our board approved a budget of $500,000 for this year, and so we have multiple options on how we spend that and how we invest that in the county. And I'd like to discuss these some options on how we leverage that money and what we've seen and some of the success we've had with turning basically 20 cents on the dollar into 80 cents of a network expansion. Okay, we feel like that's something we should be taking a look at here. So we're looking at leveraging matching funds between ourselves and partners, and I have some examples of those, to go after state and federal grants to expand the current network a lot sooner and to a whole lot more people than we originally planned. And so we've had some success in doing this, and I'll talk about that. One thing that's changed in the state, we now have a state broadband grant program. It's run by the Department of IT and the North Carolina Broadband Office. So that office has a $15 million a year budget. What's interesting about this year, and we were awarded one last year, we were successful, they're looking at putting in an additional $30 million for this a special grant cycle in the second half of this year. And they're looking at expanding this program to any tier county. Right now, Stokes is not eligible. If they expand it to tier 1, 2, and 3 counties, that would make Stokes eligible and this project eligible. And so we feel like there's a significant opportunity for us to go after, not just here, but also in October, so there's some federal funding that could have a significant impact on what we're doing here. The maximum grant you can get from the state is $2 million. They're looking to raise that to $2.8 million. But you have to come up with 35% match. And so it's a huge opportunity. So we're looking at at least 8 other grant opportunities in the state. But we feel like if they make these changes and the legislation's been proposed, this can be a huge opportunity for us here.
Eric, that would be that legislation has to pass before we can get all the tiers.
Yes.
What's the probability of it passing? Pretty good.
If you talk to the bio office, and Greg and I were on a call last week, they feel pretty confident about it. So I think Representative Arp is the one sponsoring that bill. We worked with Arp's office, as well as Senator Brown, to get that passed. And so they basically write the budget. They wrote the legislation for the Great Grant Program. We worked with electric cooperatives to help get that passed. We feel like there's a pretty good chance. And so
Should we contact our legislators and ask them to help?
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Hall,
Yeah.
give Kyle a call, and I think it's going to pass, to be honest with you, because yeah.
It references House Bill 1105, if you want to take a look at it.
Okay.
If anything this pandemic has done, it has highlighted and exacerbated the fact of who has internet and who doesn't, not just here, but throughout the state. And so I'm going to talk about how we define and figure out who has it and who doesn't. And the problem is the mapping, okay? And that's how they give out the money for grants is basically on maps that are not correct. And that's the problem. And it's more of a problem here. So I'm going to talk about that now. So these maps that are based on what current providers send in to the FCC. And the problem with what the FCC, they look at everything on a census block level. It used to be census tracts, then they look at census block groups, and then census blocks. And so if a provider says and reports to the FCC they serve one customer in a block, and it's not the provider's fault, it's just how they do it. One customer in that block, every single customer is mapped as served. That's the problem. And so I'm going to show you an example that'll really highlight this. And that's the problem here in the county especially. And so it looks like a lot of this county is served, but it's technically not. And I'll give you a good example, but it's based on our own mapping. This is the FCC's map on, there's multiple providers in the county. I'm just highlighting these 2 for right now. The red is where Charter Spectrum is, okay? And so really where they are, you pretty much have service. And we try not to go where they are, to tell you the truth. But if you look at these black areas, that's who's unserved. The purple is Windstream, okay? This is an example of our network. So they're telling, based on our reporting, that we can serve all those people in that yellow geographic area. Now this is our network map. There's a big difference between where that is and where that is. So there's almost the exact same difference on where that red is and where that red's not. There should be a whole lot more areas that are available for state and federal funding that are not. And so the FCC has recognized this. Our national rural broadband associations, USTA and NCCA, have lobbied to try to get these maps changed. And so we, and this is another, you can go to Broadband Now. It's a website that shows you the providers in the county and what speeds they offer. We're the only one that offers a gig. A couple of these are satellite providers. Spectrum says they can do 940. And then CenturyLink, the highest they offer on here, I think, is 90 meg. And that's not to everybody. And basically, when you're talking about levels, fiber is up here. It's sort of like the Lamborghini or a space shuttle of service platforms. Then you've got what I would say is fixed wireless, which we didn't know what fixed wireless could do. It's a pretty good platform. You can do about 25 meg, even 50 meg in certain circumstances. Depending on its line of sight, you have to be able to see a tower. But down at the bottom is copper. And so anyone who only has CenturyLink in this county or only copper is almost what you would consider dial-up. Okay? But the maps aren't showing that, and that's the problem. And so we know where the pain points are because we have a mapping tool, and I'll show you where people have told us they want service. But there's other areas that we know just aren't served. And then 2, they're working on getting these maps straight. And so right now, the maps, they're going through something what's called the Digital Opportunity Data Collection. The FCC is going to choose a provider to correct these maps. It's going to happen in about 2 years. They are auctioning off federal support. So that $33 million I told you won last year was something called the Connect America Fund. They've changed the name of that now to the Rural Digital Opportunities Fund. That's for areas that don't have 25 and 3 based on the current maps. That's happening in October. So we won all the federal funding that was available last year in Stokes County. And so those areas that didn't have 10 and 1 per the FCC map, I'm going to show you that, we won. We're going to go after the rest of these. But we participated in a mapping exercise in Virginia, and 30% of the maps were overstated by 38%. The maps were overstated by 38% of the coverage. So if you take that to Stokes County, there's a whole lot more of this county that's eligible for grant funding. And we want to try to go out and do that, okay?
Eric, did you say that October funding was for the Patrick County,
It's all over the entire
County
country.
line?
It's all over the whole country.
Okay.
But yeah, in Stokes, I'll
But
show
in
you,
our
I'll show you
area,
some mapping. Yeah, yeah.
It's
yeah.
up in the northern part of the county.
Well, there's multiple different places.
Oh,
I'll
okay.
show you a map here in a second. So it is the biggest and best opportunity for us to get funding. Unfortunately, the maps aren't ready yet. So there's round 1 in October, the current maps. When they fix the maps, there'll be round 2 in next year or the year after. They said they can get the maps done in 6 months. I wish they had got the map done before it was October. But we're going to participate in both. And we were very successful in the last auction. Okay. And so what we won in Stokes already, we have to build fiber to the home to those customers. And that was every one where the FCC said wasn't served. Okay. So we won some funding for that. I'll get into that. This was the preliminary areas that were available in Stokes County. When they go through a challenge process, it's a little harder to see, but those areas, they kind of got reduced a little bit. But we bid on all this and we won it. So this is our network map that I showed you earlier. The orange is where we won funding. And we won about $237,000, and that's a grant that's equivalent to about $1,800 per location. It's only 134. There's 540 that'll be eligible in October. These are people that the FCC says, at this point in time, people didn't have 10 and 1. What's available in October is for people who don't have 25 and 3, based on the current maps. Then in 2 years, they'll auction off the rest of what's not funded. The grant we got from the county, based on how much we spent, so we spent about $8.5 million. The county gave 1.8. That's an equivalent grant of $623 per location. Okay, so you can see the funding level federally. It's a whole lot more than what you would get on a county match level, if that makes sense. And so what we like to do is leverage matching funds from us and a partner and go after federal funding. And we've been very successful in getting about 80% of the network funding going forward. In this case, which is our very first one, Stokes County, we put up 80%. You guys put up 20%. So in a way, it's been flipped. But we have a state-of-the-art network here. This is the FCC's map. This is the state's map on what's available in Stokes County. Those areas in kind of brown, they're not eligible. This is the 25 and 3 areas. So these same pockets that have been available for a very long time are still there. We're going to hit these. And Rick, you were saying up there along the border, Sandy Ridge, Lawsonville zones that we were talking about, they're available. I've got some examples for you. These blue areas are zones. The orange is where we already won federal funding. The blue is where federal funding will be available. Okay? And so these are the pain points in the county. But in reality, if the maps were correct, there'd be a lot more blue on this map. Does that make sense? Okay? This is where we were in 2016 when we first started looking at availability in the county. Now keep in mind, Surrey TMC, we're not edging out to that network. So they're in the process. They receive federal funding for their area. They're putting fiber in the ground. So I've seen on the USAC website they're doing 100 by 25 meg upgrades. And so they already received federal funding because they're a different size company. This is where these large companies were getting funding, and they're only to use it to get to 10 and 1. The FCC said, all right, this isn't working. We're going to auction this off to anybody who wants it. The way this auction works is here's a reserve price. It's called a reverse auction. You start here, and it goes down. And you just keep going until you get to a point where you say, I just can't do it for that amount of money. And that's what happened in Virginia. And so we were awarded that in the 15th round, and we got about 70% of what the reserve price was. Okay? So we were at 68%, we had to get out. So one more round, we would have been out. That's the difference between $33 million and zero. There just wasn't a lot in North Carolina. It was spread out all over the place. In Virginia, Verizon walked away from their networks. They just all copper. He said, here. So that's what they auctioned off. This time, everything available in the country's up for auction. Okay? Any questions so far? Okay. This is what's available in October. All the same. Mostly all looks the same. This is an example of the reserve price. So the reserve where it's starting in Stokes, 540 locations, $1.5 million. That's at $2,700 per location. That's funding over 10 years. So you have to build it in 6, you get funded for 10, all right? We think that'll probably end up around $900,000 for these 540 locations. So what we plan on doing, hopefully, is trying to bid on fiber to that. Couple that with where we already won federal funding. That would get every single person in the county who doesn't have 25 and 3 covered using federal dollars. But that does not cover the full cost of the bill to customer. As I mentioned to you before, our average at Stokes is $3,500 per location. If we're lucky, this will be around $1,800 per location. So we still have to come up with funding to fund the difference, okay? What we did with the $33 million in Virginia was we got that RUS USDA loan. The beauty of USDA loans is 20 years, 2% interest, and no interest for the first 3 years, okay? So all this is how do you build a business case. And then what's the most responsible way of spending our cooperative members' money throughout the entire network, as well as money for the county, okay? So that's what we're trying to figure out, is how do we solve this problem? So we feel like the immediate problem, based on the math, to be solved between this auction and the next one, is based on what we've done and where we're going. But the next thing is, what about everybody else? Okay, so what's the most affordable way we can do that? And I want to talk to you about that. Here's an example of Patrick County, Virginia, just over the state line. We were awarded the county put up $100,000, we put up $100,000. We won about $800,000 state grant for the Tobacco Commission to do a fixed wireless project. That project will cover all of Zone 1 on this map, okay? We talked about doing Zone 2 wirelessly, but because there's so much money available in this auction in October, $20 million is the starting reserve price. You know, there's an opportunity for us to look at this area. So that was a 50-50 wireless project. You know, we funded. All the wireless projects we're doing are 50-50. Then we're going to leverage that to get 80% more with federal state funds. So that's one example in Virginia. Here's an example of two counties that got together, Virginia, Milley and Dinwiddie. These are just south of Petersburg in Virginia. They put down an RFP for a fixed wireless provider to come in and cover 95% of both counties. So what that means is in the wireless world, you can send a signal out to everybody, but that signal has to be strong enough and in a line of sight. You have to be able to see the tower to get coverage. So as long as we can get a signal out to these people and provide service to as many as we possibly can, that was a $4.4 million project. We put up $1 million. They did not ask for any matching funds. We offered $1 million. And that was get fiber to towers. So that's a big win for us. But if you look at both these counties, huge amount of support. One starting at $8,000 per location. The other one starting at $4,500 per location. I wish there was that much support available in Stokes County. But that's just the situation in Virginia. And so these are contiguous to where we have fiber projects going on. These fixed wireless projects on a state and countywide basis, along with federal funding, is how you get this done to the most amount of people, okay? We have a project in Virginia, so that was a 50-50 grant from the county. We put up $250,000, they put up $250,000 to get to 4 towers. Those are towers owned by the county, they're EMS locations. We won a state grant last year. We put up $200,000, we got $360,000 from the state. That's this NC Great Grant program I told you is going to be being teed up again with this extra $30 million the second half of this year. That's a wireless project. There's all kinds of federal money in October as well. So since 2010, we've have $150 million in projects going on. $80 million, that's grants. We've only put up $12 million in matching funds. We borrowed $58 million of these low-interest, long-term USDA loans. So what's in these numbers is $5.5 million for the county, this project, and the $1.8 million that you guys put up. And so that doesn't even include the matching funds of the 9.5 we spent here. Okay. So our market analysis, all these dots represent people that have gone on to, we have a site, it's called join.build River Street, and we encourage people. We want to know where to build. We don't just want to build it and they will come. We have 784 people gone here, put their information in, put in an order, they're ready for service, ready to go. So we'd love to get all 784 of these people on the network. The problem is how do we do that? Okay, we don't have enough demand to build a business case in just one of these zones. And so our original business case was if we get a 40% demand in a zone, we'll build fiber to the home to everyone in that zone. The problem is they're spread out like a shotgun. And the cost, the demand does not justify the cost in each one of these zones. So the alternative is, how do we look at trying to get to all these as well as anyone else? I'm going to propose that to you today, okay? So as far as cost goes, the blue are leads. That's when someone just goes in and only puts a little bit of information in. But we have, in July of 19, we did a marketing campaign. We were at 592. That went up 13%. It's gone up another 18% here in May. I pulled these numbers yesterday. Okay, so all those are people that have gone in and said, hey, I'm on service. We have some clusters of areas where there's interest, but not enough in one zone to get there. And so our normal business case is about 40% of the residences in that zone to say we're going to launch, to do fiber. Otherwise, it's just the business case just isn't there. Okay. So where are we at today? We've completed the backbone network in the 3-year time frame. We provide 8% funding for that project. We spent $6 million. It was estimated at 5.5. We spent almost $2.4 million, over $2.4 million just last year. Okay, and so that was 19. We invested $8.5 million in the county since 2015. The county invested $1.8 million. We're at 10.3. It's a significant investment. We bought companies for less. They've had customers, but this network's ready to go. It's all fiber. Okay, it's unheard of. We're continuing ongoing marketing efforts. We've opened a retail office. We said we'd open a retail office here. People can make payments. We have 4 employees here. We have 1 part-time position open. All of them are from here and they live here. Okay, and this is one of those. We hired a technician from Charter. He's working for us. Well, it was Tom Warner. Now it's called Spectrum. We've applied for and won all of the available federal funding. So we committed to saying if there's grants out there, we'll go after them. We won it. We won it last year. So we already have a commitment to build to those areas in orange from what we won in 2019. We're hopefully in October we can build to the rest of these either with state funding or federal funding. And so we want to try to get as many people in this network and monetize it. So getting cash flow positive is one thing. Getting net income positive another, but getting service to these people is our main priority. Okay, and we think we have a very affordable way of doing that. We budgeted $4,000 for scholarships. I think we told you guys on multiple occasions we have a scholarship program, and so we actually had 37 applications across our entire service footprint. We didn't have any in Stokes, so we reached out to the schools and we just didn't have any here. We had 4,000 ready to give out. So we had 37 applications. All of them are awarded a $1,000 scholarship. So we do that every single year. And then last year we donated over $4,000 locally in the community. Okay. And so those are things that we said we would do, and we just do it anyway.
Eric, what's the process for getting the scholarships? Do the school system apply? Do we apply?
Yeah, it's online. You can apply. We send it to the counselors.
Okay.
And so we send it to 3 high schools. There's an early college and there's academy. So
Okay.
each one of those was contacted. This year, because of the pandemic, we actually extended the application process, and we pinged them 2 more times. And so
You'll be doing it again next year.
absolutely, we do it every year. We have a committee of our board that looks at them. And so it's not just based on, all right, you're the valedictorian, it's based on need, right? And so you're saying, well, we had 37 applications and all of them were awarded. You know, we feel like it's money well spent. So I think we've given out over $1.25 million to date in scholarships, and those are $1,000 apiece.
The
So,
school system is one of your clients.
yeah, we picked those up last year. Yeah.
I mean, they should know.
Yeah, well, we have a
about
process where
about
we,
the process of scholarship.
I think with the pandemic and schools being closed, you know, we at one point in time, during our normal cycle, we only had 5 applications in Wilkes. So we normally give out over 20 in Wilkes every year. So we had 7 in Belhaven, which is on the coast. We awarded 5 there, and then there's 2 more that's going to be awarded by the local foundation from the co-op we merged with. But I think it was a little weird this year. We almost had to, you know, sort of beg people to apply, you know. But our budget was $36,000 plus $40,000. So we gave out an extra $1,000 outside of here. But
They were probably just distracted by the virus and
I think
stuff,
so.
but I'm sure our folks will take advantage
Yeah.
of that.
We'll try to be a little bit more aggressive about it next year. Yeah, definitely. So just some challenges that we have here in the county. So as I mentioned, our business case was predicated upon a fiber build out in each zone. So one, build the backbone, then how do we expand the zones? We've got funding for the areas that were unserved. We're going to build those. And we have to build those because the FCC has a time frame based on the funding. And that's those orange zones I talked to you about. But none of the zones is above 33% of our goal to deploy fiber to everybody. And so we either do smaller fiber projects in those zones that are targeted, or we look at what's a better way to get to all these 784 people, okay? The cost here is extremely high. It's the highest we've seen. And so we have networks in Saluda and Barnardsville, which are north and south of Asheville, you know. It's just here, it's, like I said, it's a lot of rock. We ran into that first thing, we started running down the roads. And it's actually more rock here than in Wilkes County. You know, on the coast, sand is pretty cheap, you know, but this is well above the average. So our fiber to the home deployment cost analysis, so we've worked up based on averages and then specifically 3 zones that we engineered what the cost would be. And so this is a little hard to see, but to finish building the entire county with fiber to everyone off of this backbone would be anywhere from $35 million to $29 million. And that's at a 30% take rate. Each one of these zones range from anywhere to $2 million to 5.5. And some of these are just not on our radar. King is obvious, they already have service. It's not on our radar. And we're trying to focus on places where we've seen some interest. And so if you look at specific zones that we've actually gone out, had our engineers cost, Danbury, Mountain View, and Walnut Cove. And so Mountain View is Mountain View Road. We call these zones kind of where we put a remote, basically, excuse me. And so that would be about anywhere from 1,600 to close to 2,800, 2,900 homes. So we're looking at residences when we look at these cases. And so anywhere from 490 to 864 at a 30% take rate. And the cost is $4 to $4.6 million. That's a lot of money. Okay. And so if we just did those three where we have the highest demand, it still costs us $13 million. That's more than what we spent to date. And so there's no business case to do that. Now, we're definitely willing to do these pockets and so forth, but doing an entire zone is really almost, it's very problematic. So this is the amount of funding as an example. $2,500 our average. The cost is $3,500 here in the county from what we've seen. The Stokes County grant gave us $623 per location as a grant. So that's, it's about a 20% grant. In the CAF 2 auction in 2019, we bought about $1,800. We're thinking that what will end up is about $2,000 per customer. So you still have that $3,500 per customer we have to come up with the money for to do fiber, okay? And those are fiber pricing. The fixed wireless average cost per customer we've seen across our network is $625 per customer, okay? And so a lot faster, a lot cheaper. Now, you're not doing gigabit fiber speeds, but you are getting people services better than what they have, and you're doing it a whole lot faster. And I think that's the main concern, is how do we solve this immediate problem with the long-term strategy of how do we get fiber where there's enough people that want it, okay? So deployment costs for fixed wireless, we identified 5 zones that we think are probably the most need. We could really probably blanket the entire county for approximately $8 million. This is an estimate. We're in the process of performing a wireless engineering study for the entire county. Then we can get more specific on zones. But as compared to $35 to $29 million of cost, this is to us is a better bridge to get to where we want to go. All right, not a long-term solution, but solves the immediate need. So these are the zones I've identified with the amount of residences in each zone of the ones that I had in green on the previous slide. So to date, we've passed close to 2,900 customers with fiber. We have 134 that we're getting to in those areas that are unserved. There's 540 in the auction. Our goal was to get to 5,500. Still our goal. So we have about 1,940. To get those fiber, even in small targeted approaches, would be about close to $7 million. We feel like for about $5.7 million, we can potentially get service to 9,000 homes. So for 16% cheaper cost, we can get to 372% higher, or almost 7,200 more homes with this wireless proposal that we're looking at. This is how you would look at a wireless deployment. We know where American Tower has towers in the county. When we first came here in 2015, we were given some maps of some county assets. And so anything that's vertical, silos, grain elevators, water tanks, towers, and we've seen this through all these other deployments that we've done. You basically figure out where all the vertical assets are, where they sit, what kind of signal that can come off of these towers, and then you build up what is called a propagation study, which looks like this. And like I said, we're working on this. We're paying for the cost of that. You can put equipment around the entire tower, and you can basically say for a 3 to 5 mile radius in certain circumstances, you can get a signal. Now, whether you can get everyone that service at a certain speed is, that has to be determined on a case-by-case basis. You can put equipment on a tower and direct it toward one sector, which is what that cone kind of thing is. That's how you build these. And so we've had extensive experience in winning RFPs for this, and then also building these networks. Like I said, we have close to 7,000, 8,000 customers on our wireless networks as we speak. Okay. Definitely a more cost-effective alternative. The interesting thing is our pricing. So our baseline pricing on fiber is 100 by 100 meg. That's 100 meg up, 100 meg down. $70 for a monthly price. Low income, you can get it for less than $61. Okay. That is about as good as you're going to see. On wireless pricing, so up to speeds up to 25 and 3, you can get the service for $45 per month, or low income less than $36. We'd be willing to open that up to students as well as part of this proposal. If we can get you more than 25 and 3 speeds, that baseline pricing goes to $70 and you can get it for as low as $61. Okay? Our goal is to try to get to as many low income and students as we possibly can. Okay, that's our proposal. Not just the unserved that the FCC is saying, is how do we get to as many people that need this and can afford it? We feel like that's a very affordable price for the service. Okay. Wirelessly, a lot of times you'll see pricing a little bit higher than that, but this is our co-op pricing for this. Okay. And this is the same pricing that we used in some of the other county grants that we were awarded. All right. And that price wouldn't change. So wireless, some of the pros, the advantage of it, the ability to quickly deploy to areas of immediate need. Once this project is engineered and funded, we can probably get it up in about 6 months. 6 months, year max. Okay. The most time it takes is to get the sites and the zoning and everything required to get on the towers. We would maybe have to build some towers. You can build monopoles to do this. You can use existing towers. We feel like there's enough vertical assets in the county to do this and do it effectively. The cost is about 25% of the cost of fiber. So you can basically take $1 and stretch that out, exponentially to a much greater population. The pricing for the services is far more affordable. You just saw that. Not that our fiber pricing is too high. That's actually very good pricing for fiber across the state. And it's an efficient gateway to get to a long-term fiber to the home solution. So what I'm saying here is we're not walking away from fiber. Fiber is what we do. That's in our wheelhouse. That's our preferred network. And so, but like I said, it's a Lamborghini or a space shuttle. The space program you were touching on, that's a pretty expensive program. And so we feel like that this is a way to try to solve a problem. The cons, some of the drawbacks, the service is limited to line of sight. You have to have a signal from a tower that gets to you. There's also something called near line of sight, which means there can be some obstruction, but it'll affect the signal strength. What we found is, pine trees really kind of mess it up a little bit. But, every single customer, we have a mapping tool and a program which basically takes their geolocated address and shows what the signal strength should be. We go out to the home, we test the equipment. The little device goes inside our house the size of a pizza. And basically, if you can get the signal, you fire it up, it's that easy. Okay? So it doesn't reach every home. I mean, if you're in a pocket where you just can't get a signal, or there's a bunch of trees in the way, or there's some kind of a building in the way, you're not going to get it. And the speeds aren't as fast as fiber. We're not saying they are. Okay? But it is an alternative for someone that's on copper. It just doesn't have anything. And it's probably a lot cheaper. Okay, you got people probably on CenturyLink's network that are paying upwards to $70 to $90 for copper, and it is crap. You can get this for $40 and get hopefully 25 and 3 or something better than DSL around, and that's the problem. Okay, the problem with the FCC is that there's not enough money to go around. So you got to look at where's the funding, how can you get it, how can you leverage funding to try to get as much of that as you possibly can. And then you do have to upgrade the network. It lasts about 5 years, but our goal was to try to get to as many as we can in 5 years, and then look at expanding with fiber. One thing I wanted to mention.
Quick question on,
Yes,
on 25 and 3, what can you do or not do with that?
You can do everything you need to right now.
Yeah.
You can have Zoom meetings and Google meetings and WebEx, and so I think 25 and 3 and 50 and 3 is enough for what you want to do. You're not going to be able to do 4K TV, okay? So, but you can do just about whatever you want to do on 25 and 3 for the average person, okay? And so you can probably have 3 or 4 video streams going on. So some of the wireless networks that we operate, in fact, Rob built this network in Virginia. You've got customers out there that all they do is stream on these wireless networks. You know what I mean? They're watching YouTube and stuff, and because that's their only option, let alone just surfing the net. So you'd think, well, people need access to the internet to do X, Y, Z. A lot of what they do is watch video, and a lot of what you can watch online is a lot cheaper doing it through the internet. When the pandemic started, we lit up hotspots throughout the state of Virginia, North Carolina. How many do we have total? 70? We have 8 here in the county. And so as part of this endeavor, we would look to, one, we're going to keep these up. They're free Wi-Fi hotspots. We would like to identify other areas that we can put and blanket the entire county with these free Wi-Fi hotspots. One's right down the road at our office in Danbury. We could light these up. Somebody can drive up, use them. They don't have to be our customer or not. It's just for the public use.
Would that be for people that where the few that you can't get to, just get a hotspot close to them?
It's an alternative. You can drive up and use it for whatever you want. So if you have to do some studying online, or you have to do something, or your internet's out, or whatever, it's right there.
Okay.
And so, we fired those up. We got those done in about, I think, a 2-week period. And so we took the Keep America Connected pledge. The FCC had challenged providers to not cut anybody off. So we haven't cut anybody off during this pandemic. We haven't charged late fees or anything. And so part of that was just trying to be very gracious to our customers. What we found is people are actually paying us better now than they were before this started because they need their internet so bad, you know. But our network hasn't had any problems. We haven't seen a huge difference in demand. We have probably more than double the amount of backhaul capacity on our network, and so we monitor that. So we're about 25 gig usage. We have 40 gig capacity, so we haven't seen any difference in our network. We have stopped doing installs, so we have a bunch of orders that are pending. So there's probably pent-up demand here. So what we're doing is we're letting customers do self-installs. We're opening that up to do installs this week. And so we just want to make sure we have the proper PPE, masks, and hand sanitizer for everybody. So for about 2.5 months, we were basically shut down. I don't know about you guys, I was getting cabin fever. But most of our people were working from home. All of our technicians are home dispatched. They get their assignments in the morning and they drive straight there. 80% of our people that aren't out in the field, they're all working from home right now. And so we're just opening that up. We're easing people back in by July 4th. And so this has been interesting times. But kind of the funding opportunities that we think are available here, and this is our proposal. I can get into this more detail later. We're looking at putting up $500,000. We would like the county to consider putting up $500,000 for $1 million in funding. We'd like to take that and leverage it and go get at least $1.8 million in funding from the state. That's a $2.8 million project. That is half of the 5.7 that we discussed for those 5 zones. If the state opens up the funding to more than $2 million, we could go after $2.8 million. Okay. But I feel like in the second half of this year, the best way to leverage that $500,000 is to go into looking at trying to acquire this grant. And we can still do this regardless. But we're in the process right now. We're continuing marketing to the county. We're continuing to pursue federal funding like we have, and we're still committed to doing that. We're in the process of performing a wireless engineering plan and feasibility study. We normally charge anywhere from $50,000 to $80,000 to do that. We have a number of counties throughout the state that are paying us to do that. Do you know how many?
We've got 7 pending right now.
Yeah, there's 7 that are, we're doing this at our own cost just because of the amount of money we've all invested in this network.
But we've got over 16 total that are talking to us.
Yeah, 16 more in queue. And so I think what every county we've talked to so far that we've identified as a very good candidate for funding, state or federally, you have to have a blueprint for how to get this done. This is how you do it. They're all finding the money. And so that basically tells us, that writes your grant, okay? We already have the fiber blueprint here. What we need is this wireless blueprint. And so we think there's money to go after as a way to get to, potentially 9,000 people in a very short period of time. So we're going
That's
to...
one quick question too.
Yes, sir.
I'm afraid I'll forget them if I don't ask them. Like when you get to, say you get the 9,000 additional folks, will that generate a lot of revenue that we can then use to plow further?
It all goes right back in the network.
Okay.
So when we started this project, we basically told you, just like our co-op, anything we make in this network is going back into this network. Okay, so the more people we get on it, the faster we get them on the network. So we'll be cash flow positive this year. We start getting net income positive. All that goes back, and when we get them wireless, we know, all right, here's where the people are. It's a lot different when you're saying, hey, we can get you service. I think a lot more will sign up. And then when we have density, we start building fiber to those people. Absolutely. It's like I said, this fixed wireless solution is a proposal as a gateway to get to fiber. That's our preferred network solution, okay? Because 25 and 3 is good for now. 5 years from now, you need fiber, okay? So we've seen this across everywhere we are. And anywhere we have a network and we have current customers, this is how we're going about expanding these networks. That's why we invested heavily in having a fixed wireless alternative, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of small companies out there doing these things, You can do it on a certain scale, but what we're proposing here is, and we've done this in other partnerships with counties, the 2 I mentioned in Virginia, I mean, you can do a lot of really good things in a very short period of time. It's just a matter of having the funding, And so we've got that $500,000. If we can leverage $1 million, this can go a long way, you know what I mean? And we're still building to the unserved areas of fiber regardless. Hopefully we can get some more funding in October to do just the same thing and do that. But we're going to build to those areas no matter what.
Get that first half and then start generating revenue off these customers, we can get to the second half fairly quick, probably, with the wireless part.
2 tranches of this would get the entire county covered.
Yeah.
And, we're not, the goal is to get to, the 5 zones we identified, so Sandy Ridge, Lawsonville, Danbury, what we're calling Mountain View, and Walnut Cove. you're getting just about everybody that needs it. You know what I mean? And so based on what we've seen. And once you have it up, it's just a matter of somebody calling in. And, I mean, it's pretty neat. And if you had asked me 5 years ago, could we do this in the mountains? Could we do it on this side of the state? I would have said no way. At that time, the technology's changed. You know, it's changed dramatically. And so, you know, there's an auction coming up for spectrum. I can't talk about it because we're in a quiet period, but if you have licensed spectrum and no one else can interfere with your signal. And so there's different ways to do this and leverage it in a way that makes sense from both a fiber and a fixed wireless standpoint. We feel like that's the way.
Yeah, the fiber will just follow the wireless,
Absolutely.
basically, and wireless will tell you right
There we
where
go.
you need to go with the fiber next.
Yeah. And we're banking on the fact that once it's available, people will talk with their checkbooks, just based on the pricing, you know. And we've seen that in a number of different places. And we have by far really invested the future of our company in this philosophy. And then going after grant funding. I mean, that's the way, it's the only way you get this done in rural areas, okay? We're very fortunate here to have this backbone network, one, that we can build off of, but two, we probably don't have to pay for backhaul to any one of these towers because we're going to have fiber to them all, if that makes sense. So the biggest cost is trying to get connectivity to the towers. We're already going to have our own owned assets to the towers. And so that's our proposal. We're looking for matching funds to do what we're calling this phase one project. We'd like to be able to leverage that. We will look to launch this overlay fixed wireless network. The timing is completely up to you. How fast we do that, we are asking for matching funds of $500,000. That's what we've seen in every single wireless project. I've shown you those. And the coverage is pretty significant. We're pursuing other federal opportunities for education and healthcare partnerships. The CARES Act was recently passed. There's E-rate funding, federal E-rate funding. There's some potential programs that we could work on together for getting service paid for 12 months, monthly service, as well as devices to connect people in their homes. And so those things are out there. The problem is it's a short window, and you have to do it pretty quickly. So we'd be willing to pursue that. And then, like I mentioned, expanding on the Wi-Fi hotspots that we already have in the county. Okay. All those things, we would propose that we look at how to leverage this funding. We're working on that study. What we would like to do is kick off a joint working session with some people in the county to help us with where the assets are, where the need is, and then coming back to this board with a formal proposal. Okay? So what I was hoping tonight to give you a status of the network, where we're at, what we're planning on doing, the funding we're going after, and then two, some alternatives that we think are highly beneficial for residents in the county. Okay. Any other questions?
Does the board mind if I go real quick? So you said you're up to 228 customers now, residential, commercial. Does that also include the schools and everything? Yep. Okay, so that's about 100 jump from last year, about this time then.
They count as one account.
Okay.
So the school counts as one account, so does the county.
Okay. And I'll have to disagree with you on something.
Go. Yeah.
I think Wilkes County is a whole lot more rockier than Stokes County is.
Depends on what part of the county you're in. You get closer to the parkway.
Yeah, I've done work all over. We have a whole lot more rock there than we have here. But
Those guardrails in.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So we hit your line sometimes too. Hopefully not. But how many towers do you think it would take to get most of this county right here on the wireless?
We got to have that engineering plan.
Okay.
And so we've teed that up. We're basically giving them the engineers where we want to go.
Mhm.
So that's in the process. What we want to do is try to figure out, that study will tell us how to do that.
Okay.
And so, like I mentioned, we have already mapped out all the American towers. They're only one tower provider. The county has towers we can use. There's a water tower in Wanaco we know about. But there's other assets. You know, you can use 911 towers, Viper towers, anything you can connect to.
Maybe hanging wrong.
Yeah. And we would build some towers. So we could
Okay.
put monopoles up and so forth. That's what that study would tell us. They would give you the exact spots that you would want a tower. Here's the existing towers and the coverage you can get. Here's where you would place towers. And so we would use that then to come back and say, okay, we think here's the most effective use of this money and how we go about trying to get the most out of that budget. Okay?
Okay.
And then use that to put together a grant proposal. Not just for this cycle, the next cycle, federal, the whole 9 yards, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping to have an answer for this on you next time you come. But I've talked with Senator Berger today
Okay.
about a communications tower that the Highway Patrol has in Sandy Ridge right there at the fire department. And anything state-owned, they don't allow any kind of commercial or anything like it. So I'm talking to him now to see if that's something that could be lifted. Maybe, I'm looking at cell phone usage in that area, but also in this case, to see if maybe they'll let you guys or somebody like y'all, State
Yeah.
Wi-Fi, somebody put
Well,
something up
anybody,
there. Yeah.
you know, I'm all for anybody who wants to try to get people on broadband.
Right.
Trust me. And we're not trying to do the whole world. Don't get me wrong, because we can't. But I think in the NC Great Act, there was some provisions in there, and I'll have to check, that allowed you to use some of those assets. But there was a certain amount of money, and we'll have to check the provisions. We can touch on that the next time we come back with this proposal. But any tower, you know, if the county owns it, it's kind of a no-brainer. It's still
Right.
going through the process. State-owned towers is a little bit different, you know, like those Viper towers I mentioned.
Right.
Any 911 assets, a little weird, you know what I mean? But if it's there, we'll look at it. If it's an option, we'll look at it. And then it gets down to what's the most affordable option. You know, a lot of these towers you can put up for $50,000. Then the equipment's another 40. If you put up a monopole, if you have a 200, 300-foot tower, that's perfect for what we're trying to do here. And if
Right.
it's high, it's perfect. But in a lot of situations, we put up, you know, poles, wooden poles. You can attach to buildings. We've attached to grain elevators, like I said, silos. If it's vertical enough and you can get out to people, you know, a lot of times what you do is you give free service to somebody that if they let you use some asset they have, you know. But part of that engineering plan is doing an asset inventory, right? And then that asset inventory tells you how that signal propagates.
Okay. And you say each one of your towers is about a 3 to 5 mile radius.
Just depends. That's about how far the signal goes. It just depends on what frequency you use, and then it depends what kind of equipment you use. But most of the new equipment's going to be LTE. If you've heard of LTE, 3.5 megahertz spectrum is pretty good. That's where most of the equipment's going. They're changing the way that these networks are built. You can use unlicensed spectrum. You can use licensed.
Okay.
Unlicensed free, but that signal can be interfered with. And so what we want to try to do is build a network that is locked down and the quality of service is as solid as we can get it, you know, without any interference. But we have multiple different vendors and different frequency equipment out there right now between Virginia and North Carolina.
Okay.
So, and by having that, we can get some buying power on equipment and that kind of stuff. But that's what that study will tell us. Yeah.
The elevation of the tower makes a huge difference.
Okay.
And the key thing about the propagation study is being able to know where the peaks and the valleys are and the hills here. And it'll show us kind of like a heat map of where customers can be served or where they can't. Because some may be within a mile of the tower, but there would be structures in the way that could block them from getting service, where others could be 3 or 4 miles away and there's nothing blocking them, so we might be able to get to more people. So some of the questions that you ask seem very straightforward, but they're really hard to come by until you get the study.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that would give a general blueprint. The vendors that we work with, the management tool they have gives you a pretty good idea based on the location. Like it'll use a geolocated address, but you still have to go out and basically, they'll give you, hey, this is definitely not going to happen, or it's pretty good. So you would drive out, you know, basically have a unit with you to say, all right, where is it? You know, yeah, it just depends where the tower is and how far the signal is. We've seen it up to 5 miles.
Okay.
Yeah.
As far as the receiver that goes on each house to receive the signal, is that something that can be boosted up? Can they put like a pole or something up to get above?
Yeah.
Something? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. They come in all different shapes and sizes. Some of the dishes are bigger. Some, I mean, when we first started looking at fixed wireless in Wilkes, we spent $50,000 on an experiment. The lightning blew it off the tower
Wow.
right there in Wilkesboro, and the antennas were as long as this table, and they look ridiculous. These are pretty good. It's just it's like when you try to get satellite, not the same type of technology, but as long as you can get it, you may be on the peak of your roof.
Right.
If that can get you the signal, and you do it, you know what I mean? And so you can be as creative as you want. It's up to the customer. I mean, we've had some situations, we put some stuff in some trees. I don't know if I'd recommend that, but you can do it. Problem is then you got to go and trim limbs and stuff, and then things grow, and then the signal gets affected. But
You might have done said this, I might have missed it. What was the cost to the customer if they decide to go with the wireless? What's the cost of having that
So-
receiver installed?
how we do everything is zero installation, zero contract.
Okay.
Standard installation.
Standard.
If we,
Yeah,
if-
true,
so in
standard.
other words, if we can come out to your house and install it on your house,
Mm-hmm.
that's standard installation. If we gotta get an 80-foot pole, that's gonna be your
Yeah,
cost.
a little
Gotcha.
So we could tell you we just can't do it unless you want to spend extra money to get this pole. And that's a non-standard installation. But in most cases, if we have a signal, it's just like we do fiber, no installation fee, the equipment's free. We give away wireless routers now. This was not the case when we first started this project. We don't have contracts. You don't like it, turn it off. You know what I mean? And so we're banking on the fact that the service is going to work and it's affordable. And so once we get people on our network, we barely have anybody leave.
And does the weather hurt the signal on this at all, the wireless signal?
You
Does it have any effect?
As he spoke earlier, you can have the issues where
Mhm.
but it's not as sensitive as satellite. You know?
Okay.
When you look at satellite, you can have weather fade. This wireless is not as sensitive as that. But if you have any type of ice or snow buildup, then you could have some issues there, yes.
Yeah, it's not like, I had satellite for a long time, and you get a heavy rainstorm, which we get all the time.
Lose signal.
It takes something a lot more than that. You'd have to have about 2 inches of snow sitting in your dish, you know what I mean, or ice coating on it. And so, not like satellite, we can talk about satellite all day, but, it's just a different type of technology, all right? Way more affordable and way cheaper to deploy, all right? But it works. If you'd asked me 5 years ago, I would have said, no way, we're not getting in the wireless business, because we tried, and the lightning would just kill it, but it's come a long way, it really has.
So in 6 months, we can have the whole county on internet, right?
Once we get started, not the whole county, whatever we can afford with whatever we go after.
Right.
You know what I mean? And really what we want you to do is say, let's pick and choose our spots. You know what I mean? You hear it from people, we hear it from people. We kind of know where the spots are based on the maps, but there may be other areas of need, you know what I mean? Just say, okay, if there's a tower close, let's see if we can get them. But it's definitely easier to deploy. I can tell you that right now. Yeah. So we could put it, part of the engineering plan and their proposal to you guys would be, here's where we think the best success would be for the biggest bang for our buck, and here's a project plan and a timeline for that. And like I said, all that's sort of predicated upon the fact of being able to get on these towers as well. And so in Virginia, those projects are ready to go, contract signed, now we're trying to figure out, do we got to buy land to put towers on, lease land? Are there some zoning restrictions on some of these things? And so that's where it gets kind of hung up. The beauty of having a good county partner is to say, okay, we understand what's going on, and we'll help fund this thing. We're going to try to expedite this thing getting done, And so it's all part of that proposal. That's why I wanted to have a working group with people from the county, so they have input into what's going on.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have any questions?
I'll go last.
I just got one. If you could just go back and, on the matching funds, is this, something that you need right away, as far as the funding, the matching funds that you were talking about to get this thing rolling?
Excellent question. And so the reason for the timing is because we were wanting to try to go after the grants. So there's certain cycles that are open for grants. So normally the state program only does it once a year, and that cycle just ended. In fact, they're going through the challenge process, and they'll be awarded in the next couple months. They're looking at doing this special $30 million additional program. So the timing of that is of the essence, okay? We can start this whenever you want. It's just we feel like what we want to try to do is use these matching funds to go get this grant money.
Right,
That's
why I'm wanting to know if there's
There's a
better
timing.
time than
Yeah. We don't know, one, if the legislation is going to get passed. We'd love to put some pressure to see that happen. But two, once we know when that window is going to open, the sooner we have this study done, and we're trying to get it done within the next, I'm not going to promise a month, we probably can, we want to be able to have something ready to go with this application. Now, we've already submitted applications to this program. We know how to do it. We can get it out there. And even if we don't win grants, we can still do this project. It'd just be for $1 million. You know what I mean? Then we can try again next year. And if it's successful, we can just keep doing it. It just depends. I have a feeling it's going to be highly successful. And it's a great way to leverage what we already have. But what we've done and consistently done is taken matching funds and turned that into 80 cents on the dollar. And that's what we hope to do here. This program is 65 cents, but, it's just what are the opportunities, In 2 years is when I think there'll be a huge opportunity in this county. So what we're trying to do is build up to that point. But we can do a lot between now and then. Yeah, it's an excellent question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Walker?
Thank you, sir. Eric, my knowledge base with this kind of technology is very limited. So some of my questions may be not quite as on target as they could be.
That's fine, yeah.
But starting with, I'm not familiar with what you're calling fixed wireless. Now,
Yes, sir.
I kind of assume that you put up a transmitter in a fixed location,
Yes.
and then people within 5 miles or so can receive that signal.
Yeah, for the most part. That's about as far as you can stretch it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So you have a tower. Hopefully it's as high as possible, and it beams within a certain radius. And if they can get line of sight to that tower, you go out there, the device, it sits on their house. It communicates with the tower. We have fiber at the bottom of the tower on our current network. That's what feeds the tower. As long as you have enough sectors and just can put as much as you want, you can send a signal to that.
And what's the max for that type of technology?
Typical speeds wirelessly, they vary, right? So that's why we look at up to 25 and 3. It just depends on, one, how far away they are. You know, if it's 5 miles, it's going to be a little bit lower, and depends on the line of sight of the tower. It just depends on the individual circumstance of every customer. Right? So our goal would be to try to get 25 and 3 to everybody. In the auction in October, those wireless companies are saying they can do 100 meg by 100 meg, and there's some saying they can do a gig. We just know that it's very hard to guarantee you get a certain amount of people, 25 and 3, on this technology, because you can't. We know it because we operate these networks. There are certain circumstances where you can get more than 50 meg. It just depends on the circumstance. So we're shooting from Hickory to Alexander County, a 50 meg connection to somebody. It's a pretty long way, right? That's on top of a building in the middle of Hickory, all the way into rural Alexander County. So that's because it's straight line of sight. You can do gigabit backhaul between these towers if you want to. Yeah, that's definitely there. But this technology is changing, I'd say monthly, but every year it gets better.
Something I was kind of wondering about, how we happen to be having this discussion at this particular time. What has happened that this is just coming on the scene versus a year ago, 2 years ago?
Well, I would say, as I mentioned before, we have acquired multiple fixed wireless companies, and we know what it can do now. And so my confidence level before, I'd say 5 years ago, was not there with this technology. Now we know about it. We have people that have done it, deployed it. We have that expertise in-house. And we have those people that can actually deploy these networks. We know what we're doing with it. When we first started looking at partnerships, fiber was the only thing on our mind, because that's the only thing we wanted to do and how we operate. The problem is, logistically, it costs a lot more. You can't build fiber to the home to every single person. It's just not going to happen. So what we decided was that we're going to have this as a complement to these networks that we're building, and it's the best way to get to that most expensive customer, to tell you the truth. And so we felt like we had to have it if we were going to try to do some of the things that we're doing.
The grant fund mentioned that the grant grants just come about, it's only in its second year.
Yeah, and so, last year was the first year of this grant cycle in the state. That was the first year it was funded. And so that was it 9.5 last year and 15 this year? So it was originally funded $9.5 million, and it was only for only tier 1 counties. And so, this county wasn't even an option, to be honest with you. It still isn't until they change the legislation. And so we feel like that we would be remiss if we didn't bring this opportunity up to you guys, especially what we think is going to happen if this passes.
There's feelings in the county that we're not a legitimate Tier 2 county. The income's coming from people who drive outside the county for employment.
I think I agree with you.
It sounds like, and I think you've already to some extent answered this, even with the fixed wireless, there's still areas that cannot be served with the present technology.
It can, but it's extremely high cost. And so the areas we've identified to getting fiber to, there's a reason why they're not served. We already have federal funding to get to those for 147 of them. We hope to have federal funding to get to the other 540. Those are probably the most and hardest to reach customers. And so, we're going to hopefully get that funding to get to them. They're going to get fiber. Those people in those orange areas, they're going to get fiber. We got that $240,000. It doesn't near cover the cost, but we're going to cover the difference. What we're proposing here is, and hopefully we win in October, fiber to get to the rest of the people, right, in those areas in the blue on the map. But this is a way to get to a whole lot of other people that have a need, that we know are there, And so the most people with the most need have gone into that mapping tool. Okay. Yeah.
One of my concerns, Eric, is it just doesn't seem like a level playing field, particularly for our students, when one has a broadband access and another doesn't. It just seems more complicated for the student growing up in a house that doesn't have the service.
I think it should be a basic right, like access to water and electricity. I think broadband is that much of a necessity.
It's headed there, it seems.
Well, the FCC has now finally come around to the point of how we built copper telephone networks, and those have outlived their useful life. They're talking about changing the way these networks are funded. And based on if you are a provider and you're in a place, and it's probably on a county-by-county basis, if you're providing service to a certain community and it costs a lot of money, they will subsidize that to a certain degree. That concept's called universal service. It's outdated. There's legislation, it's bipartisan, that's talking about how do you fund these for small companies across the entire country. That's how our telephone network was built. Small entrepreneurs building small networks, or cooperatives like us, back in the 50s and 60s. And we bought a company in Richmond County, a 100-year-old family-run telephone company. He just couldn't afford to put fiber in there, so we bought it. And we've got fiber going on. They had a wireless network they built all around in the Moore and Montgomery County, right? So I think the winds of change are coming, and like I said, this pandemic has really put a light on the really necessity of what broadband is. We do so much with it. You're stuck in your house for 2.5 months, and you have to have meetings, and all of them are online. And the only way you can go to school is online. You want to go to college, you want to start a business. It's a necessity. It should, I'm not saying it should be a right, but in a way, that's how telephone service used to be, and it's because people had to call 911. And so I think there is a movement toward that.
I think in the near future, at least not too distant future, businesses selecting an area to locate their business in, or a new branch or something, this will be high on their list. What type of broadband access is available in the location they're looking at? Used to be water and sewer roads, but broadband access is getting higher and higher on that list. If everything were to go particularly well, and I know engineering's involved and probably some other steps as well, but when could we hope realistically to have broadband access for everyone in the county, high-speed access?
Everyone? So our current, what we're looking at in the zones that we identified is about 9,000 residences, right? And so that's if we did all 5, and the price tag on that would, if we were lucky enough to get this grant, we were able to match these funds and get this grant, it would take several of these phases, right? But I would think the first phase from start to finish could be 6 months to a year minimum, or we could be, it's just a matter of how fast we want to do it. And like I said, it's getting on the towers. We have contractors that can put equipment on towers. It's just a matter of how fast you can get the equipment, how fast you can put it up. It's not like fiber where you run in trenches and you're digging, and it's just a different animal, and we found that.
Rocks are not a big factor with wireless.
Not at all. And so I would say this is a multi-phase project, so very similar to some of the other projects we've looked at. We've priced out, in that Virginia example, that $4.4 million is going to cover a signal of 95%. Now, you may find pockets where you need to build a tower or put some other assets to get a stronger signal. So it's just a matter of how far we want to go. If there's demand, we will build it. So the whole thing is people will tell you where they want to build. The problem with where we're at now is it's a shotgun. You know what I mean? It'd be great if they're all in one spot. You know what I mean? It'd be easy. Problem, It's just here, I think it's just a matter of, and wireless isn't the end-all be-all, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this is the magic solution, but it's definitely a very good option for what we're trying to do, and definitely sooner than later. So,
At least it's something than nothing. That's the main thing.
absolutely. Yeah.
What I was going to say, it could be enough for some folks, just depending on what their need is.
Well, so we operate some copper networks we acquired, and I can tell you exactly what they can and can't do and what these people are paying. And so our goal is to try to get grants to overbuild those with fiber as fast as we can, and we've been able to do that. We've taken out loans too. We took a $4 million loan out for this network. So we're in the process of overbuilding a number of different copper networks. We just won a $2 million grant in Columbus County in the town of Fairbluff. That town's been flooded twice. That was a highly competitive grant. They're gonna, that's how you get this done. So we put up $290,000. We got $2 million grant. So that's half that network. And so those people are on copper. The funding's there. It's just how do you get it? And in the case of Stokes County, they got to get the maps right because the maps are wrong. And the people that live here know the maps are wrong. Okay.
Whose task is that?
So the FCC first has to choose a partner. So they used a company called CostQuest when they first did the mapping, and this is 6 years old now. I think 2015. There's 2 vendors that are vying for that. It's probably a $20 to $30 million project, so they have to bid that out. So Congress passed legislation on this digital data opportunity exercise. So it's out there. They just have to choose a vendor. But we've been very vocal about trying to get these maps right, because we just know the cost of these networks and the kind of funding you need. And how can you give money out to an area if you don't know whether they have service or not? And everybody's known has been a problem, for a very long period of time. So they're finally getting around to it. I think they should have had these maps done before this first round of auction in October. But I can tell you, we need to be ready for the second round.
I remember how excited folks were when River Street first came on the scene and they realized there was a possibility they would be getting high-speed access.
Yep.
And it's taken a lot longer, I think, than some people would have preferred for it to.
It's true.
And now it seems like we have a window of opportunity that previously was not available for our county. That's going to speed up things a great deal and also affect the cost in a favorable way.
Absolutely
So
true.
those are pluses.
I'll say on the speed, so we knew it was going to take 3 years before we let the first customer. And then when you start seeing plows in the ground and activity going on, found the same thing in Wilkes. It takes a while to build that backbone. But once you have that, then you basically have something to build off of. So we feel like this is the best approach, what we're talking about here today.
This may be a dumb question, but I've heard somewhere the dumbest question is the one that's not asked. Are repeaters a possibility for folks who live in a area that normally the signal could not reach?
In a wireless network, you can build, and Rod could probably speak to this, we have certain situations where we do have what are called wireless repeaters, right? So you send a signal to somewhere else. Buncombe County is a good example. We purchased about, a gentleman owned a company called Mountain Broadband in Buncombe County. He had about 120 customers, so we purchased his network. And what he had done is he had put dishes on different homes up in the mountains, and he was shooting signals between these. He's putting them on top of their roofs. And so there's ways to send, if you want to call it repeaters or just repropagating a signal to get to a better signal, right, to a pocket of homes or wherever. The beauty of fixed wireless is you can be a little creative on how you do that. Okay, it's not like fiber where you got to build it down the road.
Have it or not. But it sounds like that would even possibly expand or potentially expand the number of people or increase the number of people who could have wireless. If you're using it in some locations, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say the possibilities are endless because I don't want to overcommit. So I want to be realistic about what we're, but you can definitely, like I said, deploy a lot faster to a lot more people, a whole lot cheaper. Okay, and every situation is different. It's like fiber. You're going down a road, you're plowing it, you're saying, all right, we're past your house, you can get it. This is just different. It's just different, But if you get 35 people down a road on your fixed wireless network, you got a case to put fiber in there. You see what I'm saying? So we look at this as a gateway to get to where we want to be.
A bridge.
Exactly.
What would the 500 matching from the county? What would the county actually get for putting up that 500?
So we would come to you with a proposal on, here's what we think we can get for, we're going to assume we're going to try to get grant funding. Here's how far that our 500 and your 500 will go. Here's how far that 500 and 500, that combined million, we can take it. And so, we can't promise winning a grant. It's highly competitive. But we will do everything we possibly can to win that grant. And we've proven that we can do that. But there's no guarantees because it's highly competitive. But $30 million is the most amount of money they've ever had. And so we will do everything we possibly can to get there. But what this engineering plan will show you is this is what we think the best way of going about doing that is. Okay. Worst case scenario, we only have $1 million and we just start with that. Yeah.
High-speed broadband access is a real high priority in the county. And I know all of us have had inquiries or encouragement from our citizens to try to do what we can to aid this process, help more people have access. But these are very challenging times. And what, for just conversation's sake, Eric, what would happen if the county could not fund the full 500? We sit down and start going through our budget and we just can't get 500 to work. So what about
It's a very real possibility.
300,000? What difference would that make?
This is a proposal. We're asking for what you guys can afford to do. We're just trying to figure out what's the most amount of grant funding we can get out of this thing and how many people can we get to as fast as we can. And so we understand that, you know. I mentioned Patrick County in Virginia. All they have is $100,000 to match. So we said, we'll match you $100,000. What'd that get us? $800,000 grant. And so we told them there's $20 million in October we can go after. We'll do an engineering study for you. It's 80 grand. They're going through their EDC to go get 80 grand to do that study. Right now. They're having the community basically come together to do that. That's not what we're talking about doing here. I mean, we'll be flexible. We'll put a proposal out there and whatever you guys can think you can do. It just changes the scale and the scope of the project we're talking about. All I know is our board has basically said, here's $500,000. You try to leverage that, you know, for this project. We are heavily invested in this project. This is the most we've invested in anything aside from Wilkes County. It's a lot of money.
That was a question I accidentally skipped and I had on my little list here. How was the 500 approved by the board? How was that particular amount decided on?
Just based on all the different projects we have going on. So we have a $4 million budget this year. And so we have targeted, well, actually now we're actually bumping it to $5 million. So we have, based on the map I showed you at the beginning of this meeting, we have certain projects going all over the place. And some of those require matching funds and so forth. So we have, for instance, $250,000 allocated to Wilkes for a project that we're working on there. We have matching funds we committed to for these other grants that we've been awarded. And so the budget's determined each year. We have a 10-year rolling financial forecast. We have a separate set of financials for every project that we look at. So the Stokes County numbers I showed you, that's specific to this project and how much we've invested. And so every project we have, we look at what's the opportunity, what is the return and the payback on it, you know, what's the most efficient use of the funds. I make a proposal to our board on this is where we think we should go based on the best opportunity associated with those funds, you know, and we're committed here. We want to, you know, we invested $2.4 million here last year. You know what I mean? We need to leverage that thing. Our goal, one, is to cover as many people, get these people to run service, and then two, you know, how do we leverage this budget fund? You know, if all we spend is $500,000, that's what we were thinking about 4 months ago, a $500,000 fiber to the home project. And so what now we're proposing is taking something that is this, and then it turns into something way bigger. Yeah. And so it all comes down to every decision we make it's not my money, it's our members' money. And so the beauty of working for a co-op is that we're owned by all of our customers. And so our board is elected, they're voted upon, and so we answer to every single one of those people. So I'm spending that money as if every single one of those people would spend it. That's accountability, you know.
That's
So
kind of the same position we found ourselves in. I
yeah,
have one more question, and I promise I'll let somebody else ask them. Suppose I'm asked by one of our citizens, when can I expect to have high-speed broadband access? How would you answer that question?
it's multifaceted. It depends on where you are and the amount of demand that's within the community that you live in. And so we have carved this county up as how we would build it in the most economical way, which is those 9 zones. We feel like the best way to get people what's considered high-speed internet access, which fixed wireless can do that, based on the FCC's current definition. It was 10 and 1, now it's 25 and 3. I feel like they're going to raise that to 100 by 100. The next time they change that definition, it's going to be 100 by 100, and they will fund that, I think. But if we have encouraged people to go to that crowd, join.build River Street, to tell us where they're interested. And so we've marketed that heavily. And so if there are people in the county that want broadband, what we have been telling them, go to that site, put your information in. You will tell us where to build, okay? Right now, it looks like there's 784 people that want it and need it. I would think there's maybe 5,000. So if people really want to tell us where to build, not just fiber, but fixed wireless, you know, through this project, then go to that site and you tell us that you want it, okay? And so that is the best way to determine how you're going to get it and how soon, okay? Yeah. It's join.buildriverstreet.com, correct? So it's join.buildriverstreet.com.
That's what's on the card there.
Yeah, and we passed out cards to each one of you that has that. And you'll go on there and, one, you can put your address in. It'll tell you in a map, can we get you service today? If not, it'll tell you to put your information in there. So you put your name, your phone number. We have to have your address. We'd like your email address so we can keep you updated. We are not going to send you stuff all the time. We're not going to be pinging you. But that'll let us know. And so I would love to see 2,000 people going to that site tomorrow, you know. And we'd have a really good problem on our hands. Because that's how you build a business case. And if it's fixed wirelessly, then if the demand is there, that's what drives this entire thing. Okay? So it's all about, does it make sense? Our entire company is, if it makes sense, we'll definitely look at it and we'll try to figure it out. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Excellent questions.
Mr. Lackey, do you have a question?
I just want to follow up on one thing quickly, because I know we've been on this now for an hour and a half. You was talking about having a group session.
Yes, sir.
That's going to be pretty quick.
I'd like to get that done within a month.
Okay.
I'd like to have some people from the county working with us as we work on this engineering study. Basically to know what county assets can we use. So that would help us. And then two, what areas of need there are. We did that when we first started the Fiber to the Home project, and that worked out very well. And so we feel like that's the most prudent and responsible way to make sure you guys are involved. And that way you have a say in where we're going with this thing. And we can come back with a proposal that makes sense, you know. What we may think is the best idea may not be the best idea for people who are actually here every day, right? So we're very flexible in how we do this, and we're wanting to have input from the county. I mean, we wouldn't ask for money about something without having your input in how that gets done, okay? But we can be very flexible about how we spend the money and where we spend it, okay? And so that is completely up for, you know, this decision-making process.
Well, anyway, I think you said it's probably a month and a half before you would have such a meeting with some people in the county.
We can have it sooner than later, and preferably before we start that engineering study. So we can get some current mapping of the county and any towers that you guys have or water tanks or whatever, and then they can build that into their study, because what they'll do is produce maps, and based off of these tower locations and where we have fiber, then we would look at, well, do we need to build fiber to this tower or that tower, or what county towers? We can do this a whole lot cheaper if we use county towers first. If you're going to use American Tower, you got to pay anywhere from $500-600 a month, you know, and so that kind of cuts into your business case pretty quick. We've been very successful getting on water tanks and all kinds of different things, and so it's just a matter of what's the most feasible way to do it. That's part of that process. But we'd like to get you guys in there from the front end. So if anything comes out of this meeting, we'd love to get a working group put together, and we can try to expedite that as soon as we can. And then what we will come back with is not just one proposal, but probably several. So here's option A, B, C, right? And leave it up to you guys how you want to do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Great question.
Commissioner Morris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to go back a little bit, you know, I've been working with the county 9 or 10 years now, off and on, doing different things, and I think the most important decision that ever came before the Board of Commissioners was this internet project. And the previous board, you know, immediately realized that we needed to go with you guys and made that decision, and they made the right decision. And now we're getting ready to see really why it's going to pay off, because we've got options now that we didn't even dream that we had back then. So, you know, congratulations to the board for doing that whenever they did, because they really, I think, did something great for the citizens of this county. The big problem we said we were going to have, and the problem we have had, was managing expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you said, when they see the equipment on the road, then everybody thinks they ought to get it. And then especially when you put some grant funding in, then everybody really thinks they ought to get it. Even though the grant funding would buy about 40 miles of cable, and we put in 200 or 300 already, I think.
Yeah, I think part of the misperception is that we were given $1.8 million, and that's all that was gonna fund this project. You know what I mean? And so we put
Exactly.
and so like you said, it's how you message it and managing expectations. Yeah,
But
absolutely.
it's just, you know, I'm just really tickled that we have these options now. Let me just ask a few quick questions, and even though we have taken a lot of time tonight, there's nothing more important than we could be discussing, so I have no problem with that. On our legislators, When we talked to them, did you say the 30 million's already approved, or they have
No.
to do something?
It's pending. It's pending. There's actually two bills out there. The one
Okay.
that ARP is sponsoring is the one that we think is the one to go with.
So we need to have our legislators get that 30 million approved. And the second thing we need to do is make sure they don't limit it on the tier system for the
Absolutely.
county. That's the two things.
Well, when they open up the areas that are unserved at 25 and 3, not 10 and 1, we've already won all the funding for 10 and 1. We want that to be expanded 25 and 3 for those areas in blue. And then we also want it to be, all tiers. And that would set the stage for how we go about doing this. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do that. We'll talk to the legislators about those two things. You've already said it, but the pandemic has proven, and I think everybody would agree, that that internet is as important as water, sewer, electricity practically. Especially for these students who go to school on the internet now. Even in normal times, they have to have it. And unfortunately, the low-income folks are the ones that probably get penalized the most, and student-wise. And then that's a group that we can actually address with this type of a project, even by giving them lower rates per month, so that we can make it affordable. And there may be even more things we can do to make sure they get it, which I think you mentioned a while ago. I've had lots of people call me about internet, especially since the pandemic, and even before that. And so I have an idea of some pockets in my mind of areas where people are really interested. And one question I always ask each one of them before the call is over: would you be willing to pay more tax if you had to get internet? And I have had not one person tell me that they would not be willing to pay as long as they knew it was going for internet. So I'm not suggesting that's what we're going to do right now, but that just kind of goes, people don't want to pay taxes around here for anything. So when they tell you they'll pay tax for something, that means they're really interested in it. And that's the feedback that I've been getting. As far as a working group goes, I was going to suggest we put this topic on the discussion agenda for our next meeting to get a working group. I think we need a working group with a wide variety of stakeholders, for instance, school superintendent, elected board officials from the Board of Education, maybe other elected officials, staff people that have the expertise, like for the mapping and so forth that you were talking about. Probably maybe Robin and Hanging Rock, because I think they have an interest in getting Wi-Fi and may be able to help us. So I think I'm anxious to get that working group together, at least have a couple of our commissioners on it, to not hold up the process, which I guess, Lisa, I think you answered for Commissioner Mendenhall the question about the 500K, but if we're going to make the October cycle, we have to have that fairly quick, right?
Well, the October cycle is for the RDOF. We're not sure when the state program's going to open up.
Oh, okay.
I'm thinking it's going to be that time frame. The legislation has to pass first.
Okay.
It could be pushed into the first quarter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. As soon as we know, then that's going to really start this clock of, hey, we need to, how do we go about doing this? Because we're going to go all in on this.
Yeah, well, we're doing our budget process now, so we probably have to address it, I guess,
Yeah.
before the end of June, of what
Yeah.
we're going to do.
But we need to be ready to go.
Yeah, if we did say 500K, and would that get us more grant money as we leverage it, or is it directly proportional to the amount that you match, how much you can get from the grant?
We're looking for a 50-50.
I mean, I'm not talking about you and ours is 50-50,
Yeah.
but I'm talking about whatever that number turns out to be. Is the larger that number is, the more we can get from the other sources?
Right
probably?
now, the most we can go after is 2 million.
Okay.
So you have to put 35% up in the state program. Okay, so $1 million can get you close to 2 million. And so
Okay.
that's where that number came from.
Oh, okay.
We're sitting here in a very competitive process telling the whole world that we're going to apply for grants in this area. So in a way, we'd probably be a little bit more covert about how we go about doing this. But, I mean, it's pretty obvious we're investing here. And so,
Okay.
if they raise, so another thing that's in that legislation is raising that $2 million limit per county to 2.8.
Okay.
And so if you raised that to 2.8, if we each came up with 750,000, not saying we're asking for that, but that's how you could get to the $2.8 million grant, which would get us $4.3 million. That's if that much is available. So we may engineer this and say, okay, it's only going to cost $3 million total, to get to those areas that don't have 25 and 3. You can only get grants for what's eligible.
Okay, so do we need to know the results of the study then before we really finalize this, or?
Yeah, that's part of that
Funding?
process. So
Okay.
there's a certain sort of steps that want to go through.
Okay, so and the study's about a month, you said, to get done, probably?
Yeah, we've teed that up, and they're working. I just got an email today from the company that's helping us work with that. And so, you know, I think it's a month. I don't want to really commit to that. I can give you an
That's
update.
fine. I just want a
Yeah.
general idea.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's a high priority for us, let's put it that way.
we need, given we're switching over to a wireless type of approach to this, do we need to re-emphasize to folks that they need to go to the website? You sort of addressed this a while ago.
Absolutely.
It's like they've already had an opportunity for several years to do that, but
Yeah.
this is like opening a new chapter, so they really kind of ought to.
Well, it's
Really
slowly,
be serious about it.
it's slowly increased. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like it was 13% since July of last year, and another 100 was 77. So there's people that are going in there. So if they call our office and we can't get them service, we tell them to go to that website. In fact, we even enter it for them.
Okay.
The thing is that I think we want to try to reemphasize, just based on what we're talking about here, is if you're even thinking about wanting to get this service, and for the pricing we talked about, which is a lot cheaper than fiber pricing, and probably less than what they're paying on copper for
Yeah.
an inferior service, that this would, I think, reset where people's interest would be, okay?
Oh, okay.
And, you know, and at that low income price, and I threw out there, and part of our proposal will be that same low income discount, we would like to give that to students. Because part of this whole thing is, how do you make it affordable? There's 3 pillars to, I think, broadband, is healthcare, education, and economic development, as far as being able to do commerce or open businesses. So we've focused on students forever. And so that's kind of a big thing for us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So unlike Wilkes, we could blanket most of the county here and try to get as many people on that network. And that's when you really start seeing a synergy of having a lot of students be able to get access to it.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. I think that's most of my questions. Just a second, let me double check. You said part of the network may be some additional free hotspots?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
So what we do is work with that work group to identify like the 8 that we've turned on. Are there other areas where it may be used, you know?
Okay.
We were just trying to get to the most obvious places as quickly as we could.
Okay. I guess the next step for our board is just to get the working group going then, right? That's the first thing we need to do?
Get a working group going, I think frame the concept of matching funding for this project and what it can do. I have no problem coming back here and talking about it further. This is what we do, and it's our recommendation. This is the best thing in the shortest period of time to get people service. And they'll tell us where to build, and there's funding out there. And there's funding out there that was not available when we started this project. I will commend this board. You were the first county that ever stepped up and gave grant money to anybody. That was something that was never done. And we wouldn't even be here now if that $1.8 million wasn't put out there. And so,
Yeah, it saved the program, basically.
yeah, I mean, in all honesty. And so,
That was our second most important decision they ever made.
what it's done is set the stage for us to have a foundation to have this conversation we're having today. And then this isn't just a 3-5 year thing. This is a 20-year thing. Okay, so we're 5 years into what we think is a 20-year marriage, to be honest with you. And it's not something we're not going to continue to invest in. Okay, and so that's evident by last year, the $2.4 million we put in the ground. So it's just a matter of what's the best use of the money, especially when it's public money. And I consider our money basically public money to a certain degree. We're a quasi entity of the state. So we're a 501c12, I think. Yeah. So
If we take a couple of weeks to work on the committee, is that waiting too long?
no. I've just thrown.
I
I just shot you
want
with
to
a
make
fire
sure.
hose full of information, and so this is a lot to digest. I get that, and I think I wanted to give an update to you guys, but I think this is way more than an update. I think you were probably expecting, but I think what we're proposing is something that is a game changer, right? So yeah, however soon you want it. The timing is completely up to this board. All right. So whatever your comfort level is in your budgeting process, that's fine. If there is any kind of insight into when the legislation could be passed or when it gets passed, we will come back to you. and let you know as soon as we can, hey, here's this window, this is where we're at. Okay?
Yeah, we would need to know that.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely
And
would
so
need to
timing
know
is of
that.
the essence. There is some urgency. I'm not saying, the house is on fire right now, but we don't want to miss that opportunity. Because this is a rare opportunity, what's going on with the state. Okay, so,
Thank you very much for coming tonight. I'd recommend we put this on discussion agenda for the next meeting then, if the board.
We're okay with that?
Sure.
all right.
Oh, one last question. Can we get a copy of the presentation?
I can give you a redacted version of it.
Right.
Yeah, there's some proprietary information in there. And so I'll send Shannon a copy of that. And so you'll have
We don't
that.
want anything's proprietary.
Yeah, I'll give you the key points. And so, and then some of the takeaway slides on next steps and stuff like that. And so I'll send that, so you have it. But I appreciate your time. I appreciate your patience with my health situation. I'm giving you an update. But we've put a lot of thought into this project. It's extremely important to us. The welfare of the residents in this county is important to us. We've shown that by what we've invested, the amount of work we've done here. We feel like there's a lot more work to do, and there's a lot of opportunity here, and we're willing to make that happen. In fact, we're committed to making that happen. And so there's a definite need here. And so that commitment you guys made to us, it's equally committed back to you on seeing this through. So, like I said, this will outlive my career, this project. So we're wanting to see it come to its, full possibilities. And we appreciate your support. And thank you for your time today.
Eric, one last question. if you
Yes,
don't mind.
sir.
I'll make it quick. With the 500,000, I know this is something, probably a question further down the road, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it now. If we was to put up $500,000, I know you guys said you put up $500,000, worst case scenario said we don't get no federal grant money at all. What guarantee could we have percentage of the county could have this internet if we done that?
We're going to tell you, here's what $500,000 can do,
Okay.
here's what that combined million can do, and here's what we think we can do with that grant money. So
Okay.
that's part of that proposal,
Okay.
is that here's option A, option B, option C.
Okay. So a question from down the road then.
Yeah, and so
Okay.
when we come to the proposal with you, that's what we're gonna come up with, saying, this is what our budget can do, and here's the limitations of that. Here's what we can do together. If we can leverage this, here's the possibility of what we can do to an even greater extent. So our philosophy as an organization and our board has been, if we can try to get as much grant money as we possibly can, it is our responsibility to do that, okay? And so we've been able to do it very successfully, but unfortunately, this program is only 65%. I wish it was 85 or 90, but, There's no guarantees, but we will try.
Julie, you have a question?
Yeah, when is this $500,000 that the board decides, when is that this fiscal year or next fiscal year?
They said it could, the grant stuff should come up, the first quarter of next year, is that correct?
Well, we're thinking it's going to happen in the fourth quarter this year.
Fourth quarter, okay.
It could be pushed back, just depends on when they pass the legislation.
Does your fiscal year run from July?
In your next,
Mm-hmm.
That would be in this coming fiscal.
Yeah, it would be, yeah, definitely in your next budget cycle. I can't see them, if it gets passed, not getting this pushed through, because the whole point of it is because of this pandemic. So that's why they're getting the extra funding. And so I would think they'd expedite it, because the process is already in place. Last year was the first year they did it. There was some learning curve. This year, they just went through the last cycle. I think they'll try to get out as soon as possible, just because of the need. So we'll see. We'll see.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. If you guys
you.
have any
Appreciate
follow-up
it.
questions, just please let me know. Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I got one thing too. I came across this thing, I think he mentioned earlier on E-rate. It's a proposal from a representative, I think in New York or somewhere, to have E-rate also get in the funding business. I'll pass that down for Shannon to scan and email to everybody.
Thank you, sir.
It's another source that's, might come in the future if federal government passes it.
All right. We're just going to take a quick 5-minute break and get back after that.
Okay, I got you. I
didn't share anything I wouldn't want the public to see.
got
But I don't actually want to, 5 minutes.
I understand.
Is it guaranteed to censure like the charter?
Right.
That's the problem.
week.
You're on.
I know we have some citizens that'll be.
Well, meeting back in session, move on to our discussion agenda. Up next, we have the tax administration, new platform for electronic payments. Mr. Richard Brewer.
1.8 million turned out to be a good move, seems like.
Good evening. I don't think this is going to take near as long as the last presentation. If it does, we're in trouble.
It
Does well to get up and leave about halfway through.
I'm gonna stay, take a leave.
I just want to talk to you about the opportunity of upgrading to the new platform for electronic tax payments with Sturgis Web Service. They're offering it to Stokes County. We've been with Sturgis. They've hosted our collection website for the last 5 years. Sturgis was purchased in 2018 by Government Solutions. They were added to their portfolio, which consists of about 20 companies that specialize in web-based payment processing for local governments. The new platform has several different features, such as taxpayers can schedule monthly scheduled payments, ability to pay with e-check. We have e-billing at no cost. Better fee schedule. We have, instead of percentage-based for debit and e-checks, we have a flat rate of $2.95. And all this is at no cost to the county, which will generate an annual savings of $6,360. The average annual tax bill is approximately $700. Using the current platform's fee schedule, the taxpayer would incur a fee of $17.80. Under the new platform, if the taxpayer paid using a debit card, the fee would only be $2.95. The tax office is always looking for ways to enhance customer service. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the Board of Commissioners has graciously waived all convenience fees associated with electronic tax payments. This has worked really well. The taxpayers are utilizing this fee-free service. The tax office has spoken to Sturgis about continuing to absorb the convenience fee for debit transactions, which is $2.95 flat fee, and having the taxpayers incur the convenience fee for credit transactions, which is 2.95%. Sturgis stated this option is certainly doable. It's very difficult to determine the exact number of taxpayers that would utilize this fee-free service for debit and e-check transactions. We do anticipate an increase in the number of electronic tax payments processed based upon a direct comparison of April 2019 and April 2020, when we saw a 226% increase. The county could absorb the fees associated with the first 2,156 transactions without any cost to the county, based on the $6,360 saved from not having to pay quarterly maintenance, support, and hosting fees. I'm requesting the board choose one of the following options in regard to convenience fees. Option 1, the county absorbs debit transaction and e-check fees during the August discount period, with the taxpayers being responsible for all credit transactions. Last year, there were 677 tax bills paid electronically during this time period, made up of 500 transactions, with some payers paying multiple tax bills under one transaction. The associated convenience fees paid by the county with this scenario would be approximately $1,475 using the new platform's fee schedule. Option 2, the county absorbs all debit, transaction, and e-check fees for the entire year, with taxpayers being responsible for credit transaction fees. Over the last 12 months, there have been 5,200 tax bills paid electronically, resulting in 3,648 transactions. Convenience fees associated with these payments would be approximately $10,762 using the new platform's fee schedule. And the final option, option 3, the taxpayer incurs all convenience fees. This is the option previously used before the COVID-19 pandemic. The tax office has acquired email addresses of approximately 5,000 Stokes County taxpayers. We plan on sending an email to these taxpayers, making them aware of the free service of receiving an e-bill if they elect to do so. The taxpayers will be able to instantly pay their tax bill once they sign up for electronic alerts. Lastly, I have attached the associated agreements for approval. The agreements have been reviewed and approved by Nicholas Oldbury, County Attorney, from the legal perspective. I'm requesting that the approval of the agreements and the convenience fee options be moved to tonight's action agenda for approval to ensure timely launch of the new platform by the end of July.
Thank you, Rich, and I'll go ahead and open up any questions or comments. Mr. Walker?
Thank you, sir. looking at the options, and I kind of like option two. I try to favor things in a direction of our citizens, whatever we can do for them, and kind of make things easier or more cost-effective for them when possible. But what would option two, again, Richard, I think you probably mentioned this, but I didn't get it plugged in enough. What would option two likely cost the county?
Right. I'll show you this. I anticipated the question, maybe which option. And my option was option two also, if I was asked. So, like I said, it will show the taxpayers that the county's striving to offer services to them and potentially no cost to them if they choose to pay with debit. We don't want to absorb the credit side because that's percentage based and that can get into a high number. And a lot of folks will use credit, if they don't have to pay a fee because they get points and things like that. And that's just way too much for the county to absorb. But I feel like that the cost range could be somewhere between $5,000 to $20,000 annually. It's just hard to gauge and guess how much interest people will take in this. If we send those emails out, we're probably going to get a lot of return. When it's free, probably going to get a lot of return. But like I was just speaking with Julia, in the last 3.5 months, we went from $3.5 million of delinquent real property down to $2.2 million. So we gained about $1.3 million in the last 3.5 months during this time, with the pandemic going on. So I feel like option two is the best, and it will also free up a lot of the collection staff from some of their daily processing payments. It'll be done for them, and then they can focus on delinquent collections and other projects that we've got that could produce potential income to the county.
That was you sort of answered my next question, and that is what savings are likely by getting money in earlier, chipping away at delinquents, less staff time. What savings are likely to offset the 5 to 20 that you mentioned?
Well, last year we started looking at businesses, and a lot of businesses, are not aware of their obligation to list their personal property. If they're not doing the daily busy work of entering in payment transactions, they can go and look up new businesses and give them a packet, making them aware that their obligation to list. And once you get those folks listed, as long as their business is in place, that's recurring revenue to the county. So you're going to see an increase in discoveries and things like that in doing this. I think it'll pay for itself.
And you mentioned the savings in staff time too, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Any more questions? Commissioner Morris?
Hey, Richard, how you doing?
Good.
When you're talking about this option two, is it entire year, every year, or are you saying this for one entire, like this calendar year or this fiscal year?
Well, the numbers that I run right here, 5,200, was actually, I think I run them last week, so it was like from May the 15th through May the 15th, and that was just a whole year cycle. That's how many we incurred was 5,200. And in the month of August, in option one, we had 677 tax bills paid. And you're going to see more in the month of August because people get those bills and they're going to pay them early.
Okay. I think I'll lean toward option two as well.
More questions, comments?
I was leaning towards option three, because that's what we've been in.
Commissioner Mendenhall?
I don't have any comments. I've looked over and I pretty well know which way I'm going.
Does this have anything to do with the escrow accounts?
Oh, no, sir. The escrow accounts will be paid totally separate, so that'll be paid on a flat file, just one check. So there'll be no fees there at all. Yeah.
Okay. I'm kind of leaning more towards option two myself on this. Commissioner Mendenhall, which option did you say?
I was going to.
Two, okay. All right. Any more questions and comments with it?
to the action for this meeting?
This meeting?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
To be moved.
All right.
Make
Then
a-
it-
Just need a consensus of it. Okay with everybody?
Item B.
Item B on the action agenda. All right.
May I ask another question?
Yes, sir.
Richard, what are some of the other pluses again by going to the new system?
Well, you'll have more options. You'll be able to pay with an e-check, where you can do automatic drafts. If you had a $1,200 tax bill and you want to pay $100 a month, it's something that they can
Set it up that
set
way.
it up that way, and it would be taken out. And with this, the e-billing, that's actually free. With some of the other companies that we looked at, they were about 12 cents for each e-bill that was sent, or e-alert that was sent out, and this is just part of their platform.
And you're aware of other counties using this particular platform, and do they seem pretty satisfied with it?
There was a couple of counties that he had spoke of that were using it, and there were not been any problems with it. And my question to him was, how can we go from $1,590 a quarter to not paying anything? And what he said was that when they were bought by Government Solutions in 2018, they become part of a bigger company. So, competition's good for the consumer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
You know, in years past, a big request was bank drafts. And you just go ahead and do it and not bother me, so I don't have to go online and do this every month.
Right.
That was a large request that we've never been able to do.
Right. And two, going to this platform, if something did go amiss and the transition didn't go smoothly, we're not changing vendors, we would still be able to use the current system that we've got until they've got the kinks worked out of it. But they assured me that if we got this done at this meeting tonight and we send them all the information tomorrow, that we should meet that time frame of being by the end of July.
Sounds good.
How long will you run the two systems before you drop the old one?
Well,
For a month or two or something?
probably just go straight into it if it's proven and we know it's right. But the good thing, we've got the crutch of if something crashes with this, we've got the other one we can pull back online immediately.
For how long? For just a month or two or forever?
However long it would be needed, but I think that from what they've told me is going with this new platform it's going to be.
Not worried about it?
Yeah, they're not worried going from a Camaro to a Corvette or
Okay.
something like that.
I'm fine.
Thank you, Richard. We'll move on now to item D, North Carolina Statewide Emergency Management Mutual Aid and Assistance Agreement Revision. Mr. Oakley.
Mr. Chairman, this right here is submitted from Brandon Gentry, our EMS Director. This is a agreement that it should be updated every 4 years and signed. This allows the counties to go to other counties with emergencies being declared. And I think some of our workers have went into the coastal areas during the hurricane times. And they would come here in when we need them. So I think all the way across the state with their counties and the states, they signed this. But this needed to be updated. It had last time it was done in 2008, and Brandon is requesting that we go ahead and re-sign and update that revision. You see where Ty is gave it his blessing on it. So I don't see why you wouldn't do this because it is something that is much needed across the state when it is needed.
Is there any questions or comments on this?
Just
We'll
want to
go,
make sure, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, sir, you go right ahead.
Commissioner Minot.
Well, mine's very short. Did it say, Mr. Oakley, did it say every 4 years that it would be updated?
It should be revised.
It should be revised.
Okay, so would this put us back? Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Walker.
It's been a pretty good gap since the last one, hasn't it? I was wondering if we could go action for next meeting.
Yeah, he doesn't need it, it's just
Just
a
one
normal
consent
item,
item.
so next meeting is fine, action or consent. Since it's not a money item, you can do it on
Any
consent.
consent would be a little easier.
Any more questions or comments? Consent, everybody? All right. We'll any other items. C, the Stokes County Planning Board appointments, reappointments. Mr. Oakley?
This is a request from Planning Department David Sutter. He has the following members that their term has expired. Their term is every 3 years. So listed below, you see Larry Snyder from Yakin Township, and they're all based on the townships they live in. Ronnie Morris from Saratown, Stephen Spencer from Snow Creek, and Gary Simmons from Quaker Gap. These 4 individuals, David Sutter is requesting for the board to approve for renewal.
I'll open the floor up for nominations.
Move that nominations be closed.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. So we'll poll at the next meeting.
Move it to action.
Action agenda next meeting.
Larry Snyder was 2 weeks ahead for his meeting, I believe. He was,
Yeah.
last time we had a meeting. Or a week, was it a week?
Oh,
Wait,
yeah.
wait together, yeah. All right, item D, the JCPC appointments, reappointments. Ms. Shaver?
This is for the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, and there's some reappointment requests, and those are for Stacy Elms, Rusty Slate, Tamara Vett, Terry Fowler, and Tiffany Cone. And there were some individuals that resigned from the council, and there's some new recommendations for new members for Joe Rick, Zach Barth, Sarah Shaler, Jamie Edwards, Jordan Boyette, and Christina Chilton. And so those are the recommendations from the council for those reappointments and appointments.
I'll open the floor now for nominations.
Make a motion to close.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Also move it to the action agenda at the next meeting. Item E, Coronavirus Relief Fund information. Mr. Oakley?
Mr. Chairman, as you know, on May the 6th, we discussed it with the Coronavirus Relief Fund distribution between the counties, and the Stokes County has received $991,700 approximately. On the 11th, we met with the board and informed them on that, and on the 19th, we met with our representative, Colin Hall, County Attorney Ty Browder, with all of our municipalities, and with EMS Director and Health Director and Economic Director, and along with Shannon and myself, and coming up with a plan that will utilize the funding that the best we can. We're looking and listening to a lot of other conference calls and videos that conferences that other counties are having, and we're learning a lot of stuff from that on how they are doing theirs. And pretty much everyone is in line with how they want to go about doing it. Right now, Shannon and I will submit the form for the relief plan that gives the county their plan that we want to do, and then from that point on, we will revise as the commissioners see that it needs to be revised and updated. And then on the the third Thursday in the month in July, you'll have a League of Governments meeting, and then the board by that time hopefully will be truly updated on what's going on. So right now, the Shannon and I plan on moving forward this week with the plan of action that the county has got with a rough draft, and then, like I said, it may be updated monthly after that point.
Okay. Any questions, comments from the board? Commissioner Mendenhall?
Just a quick comment. So I just want to make sure I heard you, Mr. Oakley. You and Ms. Shaver have looked over other counties, the method they used. And so far, most of them have been pretty close to being similar to each other. Is that correct? And at this point, you're going to try to work off of those and come up with one that's similar to all the other counties?
Everybody is pretty much looking
Pretty much
at
close to each other.
letting the municipalities do their own. We will sign an agreement with them that what funding they get, we will be held responsible for it. As for them to make sure they do it in a proper manner. And it'll be based on population. And the funding that the municipalities will get will be after all the other expenses have been paid out for them and for the county. And if there's $200,000 left over, that we can maybe do some grant funding and helping businesses that have been closed to try to get back on their feet, then there's money that can be distributed out to the municipalities, and with the county being that largest portion, because all the counties are looking at, that type of procedure. Kyle Hall is looking at some legislation that hopefully can ease some restriction on some revenue side of it. Because right now, if it's got anything to do with county revenue, they won't let you use it. But some scenarios or situations to where it affected county revenue in a manner that Kyle is thinking about maybe getting some legislation done, or even getting the federal government to ease some of these restrictions on that. So, but anyway, everybody's in the same boat. It's new. We're trying to figure it out. We're trying to make sure we do the right thing. We're trying to make sure we take advantage of what has been allotted to us. So, and I think we can do that. So I'm right now, all the department heads are coming in and letting us know what expense they've got in it. So we're trying to come up with how we want to allot out what areas of the plan has the funding in it. And once we get that in there, saying yes, we want our 991,000, then we'll start revising from that point and refining it.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, sir. Commissioner Walker?
Question for our manager, please. Nick, what do you need the board to do to keep this process moving along?
It's just not really anything other than just, we've got your okay to go ahead and submit these applications. One of the applications has already been in. It had to be submitted. This one here has got to be submitted by June the 1st. And it is the plan of action that we are taking on it. And it's pretty much statewide that most counties are all taking this same type of plan of action. And on how they're going to distribute money or make sure that the money is being applied to COVID-related issues.
Right. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Unless there's opposition, could we just give our concurrence for our manager to move ahead?
I got a question or two. Commissioner Morris? You done talking? You done?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
So basically, Jake, this group of names you have listed here, you guys are just working it out to where everybody agrees, right?
We all had a discussion here and went over a lot of different situations. Pretty much everybody's on board of what we're talking about.
Okay, well, yeah, that's a good way, that's the way it should be done, I think. Also, when we do the July meeting with all the elected officials there, are you gonna ask us to approve something, or are you just gonna tell us that it's already been done, or everybody's happy, or what's kind of how you plan to handle
I
that?
hope by July that once we submit this, you can modify your plan as much as you need to, which is what everybody's having to do. But hopefully by then, we might have received the funds and started to get, I haven't got exact numbers from any of the municipalities yet about like costs they've incurred. They're getting those together. Public Works is looking what it costs to outfit our buildings for protection moving forward for a more permanent thing like plexiglass, things like that, the cost. So hopefully we'll have a better idea of what those numbers are going to be. We get back that. It might just be sitting down to approve the plan and then going with like the direct municipal share where we decide the portion that's left and divide that out by population by the municipalities, and everybody agrees upon that, and then we can move forward with hopefully updating for the last time and submitting that in.
So do the elected officials ever have to approve this then, or at some point? I mean, we got a whole bunch that could have a disagreement, that's why I'm kind of asking.
Right.
I mean, I don't think they will, they could do the groundwork, but.
No, and technically it's in the county's control. It's really up to you on how you want to disperse the money.
Oh, okay.
It's
That's
just-
right, I remember that, yeah.
Right, it's in your control, so you're giving them an opportunity to give you information on what, like the town of Danbury, for instance, said, they came and said, this hadn't cost us really anything. We're not really out any income or, nothing for our businesses or anything like that,
Oh,
as far as
okay.
in the town. Now, they may have a business there that's different that they wanted to provide something to. But, I mean, King, of course, has incurred more expenses, Walnut Cove, but it's in your direct control as
At some
far
point,
as
this board may have to approve it, but hopefully it would be a project that you guys, that all these people have agreed to, so everybody be happy with whatever we approve. That's the goal.
Right, exactly.
Everybody's on the same page and everybody is happy with what's going on.
Okay, got it.
Because the NCACC even put out some guidance just to the municipalities saying that, it was their impression that hopefully the counties would work with municipalities and offer them sort of a direct share, but they didn't have to. But why nobody would want to do that, I wouldn't know, but,
Pretty much everybody is though.
Okay.
More questions?
I don't have any more questions.
And they're giving you a lot of flexibility with modifying your plan because of the short timeline on submit. Nobody has their exact cost yet of everything. So there's not much other way to do it yet at this point.
There was a lot of counties having special call meetings because they was really trying to make sure this stuff was taken care of and informing the board and letting people know what's going on. So, because there's a lot of money out there.
Several calls got to be spent by December 31st, correct?
By December the 31st, it's got to be spent
Yeah.
unless they change the rules and say it extends this and all across the state with the exception of Mecklenburg, Guilford County, and Wake County. There's $150 billion to be spent.
Yeah.
Our portion is $1 million. I wish I could take it and put it in your budget, but I can't.
Yeah.
You're doing everywhere.
Yeah.
All right, now we'll move on to our action agenda. Item A, the transportation contract proposals for DSS and senior services.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Item B, the new platform for electronic payments from tax administration
With option 2, right?
with option 2, correct?
Move it, we approve option 2.
Second.
All right. Any comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion to adjourn.
You didn't ask for no's.
Oh, was there a no out there?
I don't know.
Any opposed?
No,
All right.
Mr. Langford shaking his head, he didn't oppose.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Sheriff was really generous with his time tonight.
Quick and fast.